Please stand by. The live event will begin shortly.
Thanks for joining us. Please stand by. The live event will begin shortly.
Thanks for joining us. Please stand by. The live event will begin shortly.
Thanks for joining us. Please stand by. The live event will begin shortly.
Thanks for joining us. Please stand by. The live event will begin shortly.
Thanks for joining us. Please stand by. The live event will begin shortly.
Thanks for joining us. Please stand by. The live event will begin shortly.
Thanks for joining us. Please stand by. The live event will begin shortly.
Thanks for joining us. Please stand by. The live event will begin shortly.
Thanks for joining us. Please stand by. The live event will begin shortly.
Thanks for joining us. Please stand by. The live event will begin shortly.
Good evening, everyone, and bear with me one second. There we go. Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for our emergency action talk on the Queens Bus Network redesign. Just a few housekeeping items before we begin
Jack, we
officially.
cannot see you. We cannot see you.
Can you see me?
No, we can't. Can
'Cause I
everyone
have a
see
separate
Jack?
camera on.
Okay,
There we go. Remove. Here we go.
there we go.
Apologies for doing everything on fairly short notice, but everything's working. Again, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. Just a few housekeeping items. Everyone on Zoom should be able to unmute themselves and start their video. If you try pressing the button, you should be able to do so now. And everyone who's on
Jack,
YouTube, who's watching on YouTube, you do have the ability to make comments. And when you do, please be respectful of each other. We're all here to elevate each other's voices. And really, again, all of us do have a diversity of opinions and insights that each of us bring. So please all be respectful of that and embrace that. So again, thank you all for joining us, and I'm going to turn it over to my
Jack,
colleague and good friend. Yeah,
the video is not coming on, so can we please work? I'm trying to hit the camera.
You should be able to. Let me. You should be able to
it
do
says
that
you cannot
now.
start your video because the host disabled it.
Try it now. You should be able to.
Okay, can everyone see me and hear me, hopefully?
Yes, we can. Awesome.
Okay,
So I'm going to turn it over to our founding president, Charlton D'Souza.
thank you, Jack Narenberg. Before we start, let's all congratulate Jack Narenberg on graduating from Pace University. Jack is our vice president, and he put all the technical stuff together. Jack, thank you so much. A million thanks. We couldn't do it without Jack Narenberg. He's the best. Some of our board members are here. Alan Rosen is here. I see Mrs. Byers is here. Judy Birdie from Roosevelt Island's in the house. All right, Judy, Q102. And we have a bunch of other people here. Andy Pollock is here. That's all I see so far. And on YouTube, so what I need everyone to do right now is I want everyone to share the link. Let's share this, the YouTube link. Let's all share it out with your friends so that everyone can come on board with this meeting. And I'll give you all a few seconds to do that. Jack, how many people do we have on the YouTube stream so far?
So on the YouTube, we have 11 views, 4
Okay.
viewers. We are expected to be getting more given the urgency of this event right now. Please excuse me that my camera's off. I am juggling 2 different devices. So.
Yeah, so right now we're coming to you live from Roosevelt Island right now. I'm at the Tata Institute. So again, that's Judy Birdie's place, Roosevelt Island, Q102. So guys, we have a lot to talk about tonight. I do want to thank Mrs. Evangeline Byers for coming. And Mrs. Byers is a union advocate, a leader in the union. Mrs. Byers, would you like to introduce yourself and please come on? Thank you.
Can you all see me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so my name is Evangeline Byers. I am a transit worker, and I have a group that I lead called Stronger Together. We are a caucus, a union caucus within New York City Transit. And I'm here to basically discuss the ramifications of what's happening with this redesign.
All right. Thank you, Mrs. Byers. That's excellent. And we look forward to working with you. And I know you've done so much. You and Progressive Action and Tramel Thompson, everybody's been working hard behind the scenes. So thank you for your leadership and your advocacy. Let's also introduce Judy Birdie from Roosevelt Island, who has been leading the way for the Save the Q102 bus. Her leadership helped save the route. So let's give her a big shout out. Judy, why don't you come on and say hello?
Judy, are you there?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. I lost the link. I lost the link.
We can hear you. We can see. We hear your voice. We just don't see your video.
Okay. Yeah, I lost the visual. Good evening. Well, we know what's happening on Roosevelt Island, that our Q102 is only going to go as far as Queens Plaza and then to Courthouse Square and not go down 31st Street, which is the major commercial street in Astoria, which we cannot understand. But they did promise to save it going to Queens Plaza. So we really haven't had much more information and maps that show the connections that people can take. But we were still looking for information. Thank you.
Thank you, Judy. So Judy collected hundreds of signatures and petitions to save the Q102, petitions that Passengers United had created and distributed on Roosevelt Island. And I just want to let everyone know, I believe, Jack, correct me if I'm wrong, it's going to be Sunday, August 29th, when the changes on Roosevelt Island take effect. So, Jack, why don't we go to the MTA's website? Can we pull that up on screen share on your end? And you could just go through the, or do you want to show people the Passengers United website? Good evening, Mike Howard. We got you.
Awesome, and thanks for coming. So, yes, you can hear me, right?
Yes, we can all hear you.
Awesome. So, I'm thinking, why don't we show everyone our website, because
Yes.
we've done our part to really ensure that people can easily access information to understand the Queens Bus Network redesign, but also become empowered to take action themselves. So here's what we put together, and a lot of this leads to the MTA's resources. We're going to get into a lot of this in just a bit, but just to start, here's what we've put together. We have some hyperlinks right here, and this is easy access to learn more about the redesign. This takes you to the MTA's webpage for the Queens Bus Network redesign, and this has a lot of the information that the MTA's been put out about the project as a whole, and some other links that you have to scroll down for. Some other materials, including the Title VI analysis, which I don't believe would have happened if I hadn't pushed them for it for several months, which they should be doing anyway. But we're going to get into a lot of that. We also had the link to submit a comment to the MTA, and that takes you to this web portal that is still active because the Brooklyn plan is still going on. And even though they said that the public comment period is closed, you can still put stuff in. I don't know if the MTA is going to see it, but you can still put in a comment, of course, give your personal information and be as specific as possible. That's what we've been asking people to do this entire time, because that's what the MTA's planning team needs in order to really understand what your needs are and how they need to take proper action, which of course they have not, and without real justifications for any of their decisions. Basically, you can also view the full bus map. This is a PDF version of the bus map, and a lot of these are also accessible on the MTA's website, as well as the online system that the MTA has been using, which is called Remix, and that's what the MTA has been using largely to gather public information. And this is an interactive version of the new Queens redesign map, where you can, and we're going to go into this in greater depth as well, where you can also take a look at some of the existing routes to see how they compare with the ones that are going to go into effect on June 29th and the end of August as well. And we have a bunch of other links as well. We embedded the MTA's web system so that you can compare your trips. This is and the not only what routes you would have to take, but also how long they would take, how long you would have to wait for them. And we also have a portal below that to contact your elected officials. And this is especially useful in petitioning to them because the MTA is a state agency, while at the same time, the New York City Department of Transportation, which has oversight over a lot of what the MTA does regarding buses and bus stops as well. The New York City DOT has authority over bus stops, so they're also responsible. And city elected officials are supposed to be there to hold them accountable. And this tool will help you find in all of them. And then below that, just above the recordings of some of our previous events, and this event will be up there as well once it's finished. You can click on this link. This is our final report for the Queens redesign. And this includes all of our recommendations and proposals, as well as other useful information regarding understanding the needs of everyday bus riders, understanding the implications of bus stop eliminations, some more in-depth information in there. And this is 46 pages. And I definitely encourage all of you to, and we're going to get into some of the issues that are included in this report as well. This is kind of a summary as to what we found, what our concerns are, and we have a lot of them. We're going to go into them. But this is kind of an overview of those. So this is what we have on our webpage. It's at passengersunited.org/QBNR for the Queens Bus Network redesign. And you can also find it on our homepage. The first thing you see are 2 links to our Queens portal and our Brooklyn portal, because both of these projects are going on at once. And you would be clicking on the Queens redesign portal, and it takes you right here. So that's what we have on our website. Charlton, anyone, is there anything you wanted to add? And of course,
Yeah.
link
So
here that takes you
one
to
thing, can I ask everyone to please mute when somebody is talking, so that we don't hear interruptions. And then the other thing is, I want to talk about, so most of you who attended this meeting have attended our past meetings. It seems to be some of the same people. So there's a couple of wins that we were able to accomplish. So Jack, why don't we show them the transfer? Do we have the video of us speaking at the MT board meetings when we attempted to get the free transfers? If we, you can just, why don't we go through our list?
Yeah, I'll have to look for it here, but we did actually give the MTA a list of all of
Free
the
transfers.
So for context, the MTA promised in the staff summary for the Queens redesign when it was being approved in January that no one should have to pay any additional fares because of the changes in the redesign. So if you're not familiar with how the MTA's transfer policy works, is that once you swipe your Metro card or tap your Omni or whatever you're using for Omni, if you need to make a transfer, you get 1 free transfer within, I think it's a 2-hour period. And that's done with the same Metro card or Omni card or whatever contactless bank card or phone that you're using. So you get 1 free transfer if you need to switch from the subway to a bus to a subway, or between 2 different buses. However, what you don't get with that is if you need to continue your trip on a subway or another bus, you then have to pay another fare because they don't offer free transfers for a third leg of the trip. And the problem with that is, for many people in many different transit deserts, areas without adequate public transportation options, if at all, and access, if at all, for a lot of these people, and a lot of these transit deserts are in the outskirts of the city, and people rely on the buses, they have to pay an additional fare, and that has been a major issue. And now with the changes coming to the Queens Bus Network redesign, what happens if someone who's taking 2 buses and a subway, or a bus and a subway, or 2 buses, now has to change to a 3rd bus or a 2nd bus if they were transferring from the subway to continue their trip, and then they would have to pay an additional fare? That is a Title VI violation, considering that so many people who would be subject to this double fare are in lower income, more demographically diverse communities. And when we went up to the podium at the MTA board meeting back last month, we made it very clear to the MTA. This was back at the end of April. We made it very clear that the MTA had to take action on this immediately. It should have been done already. It should have been a priority to make sure that no one gets screwed over. But okay, something must have happened. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. You have 1 month to get this in before there will be grounds for legal action to be taken, because you're screwing over people who should not be, and you promised them that you weren't going to do that. So that's what this list is about. And
okay, so Jack, in the interest of time, I think everybody sees, let's just run through the list. But before we go through the list, I just want to tell everyone the good news. Thanks to Passengers United leadership, and I wouldn't even call this an accomplishment because it's only a promotional transfer for 6 months. Jack, do we have the board document on the promotional transfers?
Yeah, let's look for that.
Okay.
But
and
what I'll say about that, yeah.
I do want to give a big shout out to Karina Nieves. She's watching on YouTube. A couple of people have joined. George has joined us. Thank you, George. Mike Howard's joined us. And yep, and we have a whole bunch of people on YouTube. Again, guys, all your questions, please type it in on the chat, and we will try our best to answer your questions as best as we can. It might take a little bit a while, so please bear with us and be patient. Thank you. Go ahead, Jack.
All right. So what I want to say about this is I was in the room when they voted on this. I was glad to see that
Yeah, me
action
too.
finally taken by the MTA, or at least that's what I thought when we read the summary in the board book, and there it is. It's on page 49, and this was an action item to approve a promotional free transfer for 6 months. And again, when we brought up the issue of this not being permanent, several hours later, after I think it was after the joint New York City Transit Railroad Committee meeting, the New York City Transit president, Mr. Demetrius Critchlow, he came up to me and he explained the reason why this was intended to be a promotional transfer policy. And he explained what he had told me was that the point-to-point transfers, which is what we had in this system, this is what we put on our list. That kind of system is obsolete because with Omni, they would be able to evaluate every single trip that's made, person by person, and they'll be able to evaluate trip patterns in that way with Omni, and then they would be using that data to evaluate, oh, this route needs this many transfers, but this route doesn't. Well, what he couldn't give me, though, was many things. One of them was the any information about how they're going to be evaluating which routes need the second transfer, which, to be clear, should be all of them and everything that we put in there. And so, secondly, no metrics to evaluate other than individual trip patterns. There's no other information about what's really going on. So if they base it off of that alone, and the MTA has done similar things, and I do not trust them one bit with what they're doing, because if they can't justify it, and they can't justify what's going on behind closed doors. And thirdly, what I then found out, and I really hope that Mr. Critchlow was misinformed about this, is that he told me that this promotional free transfer for 6 months would only work on the buses, and it would not work for subways. So if you have a trip that is going to take 2 buses and a subway, or a subway, a bus, and a subway when it didn't otherwise, you're going to be screwed, and you're going to be subject to double fares, because he told me, and these were his exact words, oh, we're only interested in the Queens Bus Network redesign. No, Demetrius, that's not what you're supposed to do, and you're leaving out a pretty sizable amount of the population who's going to be screwed over because you're leaving out so many people with no justification. And this is a major oversight in this plan that the MTA has.
Like, to be clear, I think it subway and 2 buses, if I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure in that document it says that it's going to be allowed in the temporary pilot program. You want to just pull it up real quick to
this is what they're saying. So this is the exact language, and I really hope that you're right, George. They're saying that
it should be that's what it should be, but again, based on
but we have to read what the language says.
We've all read the language.
Yes.
Let's read the language.
One additional free bus transfer within a 3-hour period from the time of the initial paid tap. That's an additional free bus transfer. So does that mean that if you're traveling from, and to use an example that Charlton can
I got a
relate to.
perfect example.
Yeah.
So Q82 bus from Belmont Park to the Q110 at Jamaica 212 Place, and then the J train at Parsons Archer. So the way it is set up now, we would have to pay an additional fare when we get on the Q110 because you get a bus to subway transfer. So what we need clarification on from the MT, and I know the MT is watching this YouTube stream. Hopefully, it is where if you if you tap on the Q82 first, hopefully you'll get a transfer to the Q110, and that transfer will allow you to get a free subway access at Jamaica Center for the J train. Because a lot of people do work in Lower Manhattan and they rely on the J train in the morning.
Or Brooklyn too.
Brooklyn
Right,
too,
yeah,
yeah,
so
sorry.
that's
Yeah.
so
And
so
anywhere the
I
J
think
train.
because you guys are right with the vagueness of the thing where it says it's the Queens bus rider, so they don't give the definition of a Queens.
Yeah.
Who is a Queens bus rider? Is a Queens bus rider somebody who takes a Q bus at some point during their trip, or is it somebody who strictly makes their entire trip using pure buses? You know, because if
Yeah.
it's at some point
So
during their trip,
George,
then
why don't we let Mrs. Byers comment on this? Because Mrs.
Mhm.
Byers, she does a lot of work with the bus operators and a lot of work with the union. Come on in, Mrs. Byers. What is your thoughts on this?
What do you want me to comment on? What part?
Everything we've discussed so far. I wanted to give you an opportunity.
Okay, well, on the side of the operators and the union, what the union did was they sued along with the public advocate because transit tried to implement this without having public hearings. They basically just tried to force the removal of the routes and stops. So they basically had an
Just for
arbitrary.
clarification, I just want to say
Mhm.
the public advocate did not help in this. I'm sorry to say that. He was reached out to. In fact, we invited him to our meeting, but I'm not gonna get into specifics that happened behind the scenes. All I can say is he never came to our meeting. And that's unfortunate that he didn't do that. Um, and people who used to work in his office who no longer work there. It was a whole big thing. And so we have some insight on that. But I will say
What are the
this.
bus network redesigns?
The MTA has been redesigned.
Hello?
Yeah, Jack?
Jack?
My computer just randomly started something. We do have a video as well.
It's okay. So I understand that. I get where you're coming from, where you're saying that he actually didn't engage with Passengers United, is what you're saying?
He was invited to several events and he did not
Uh-huh.
engage because his staff and his office had personal opinions or whatever. I don't know about with the staffers. I can't really discuss it on here, but it basically he just didn't come to the meeting. And I
Right.
guess he had other priorities. So again,
Well,
I'm
he
not gonna
did.
give him
Well, he did sue the MTA. He did sue them
no. Not
about
as
it.
far as we know, nope. He did not. I just want to make that very clear on here. Nope, because we would have known it. Nope. The union. So what happened was Local 100 filed a grievance, and like you said, it doesn't mean that they have to go to court. They could have just
Right.
filed. So Jack, can we pull up Local 100's website and I can find it there? Let's pull that up since we're on this.
Well, what I'm saying is that okay. So I know that he probably didn't support, but I'm saying he did have some involvement. He may not have
No,
worked on
he
your
did not
side.
respond back to our letters. We've sent him. I've communicated with
No,
staff
I'm
in his
agreeing.
office.
I'm
Yeah.
agreeing with you on that.
So, Mrs. Byers, look at the screen. Can you see the screen?
I can see the screen.
Okay, there we go. So, let's read this. Jack, do you want to read that real quick and get Mrs. Byers' take on this?
Yeah, so this article came out on May 21st. Union gains back work in Queens Redesign grievance. So this was about changes being made. And I think in summary, it was a TWU that claimed that it was losing work. It was losing routes because of the changes that were made. And
Let me read it.
yeah.
Right, but that's what I'm trying to comment on.
Yeah, so let me read this. So this had nothing to do with the public advocate. I just want to make that very clear.
I'm not saying that it had anything to do with the public advocate. On your side, what I'm saying to you is Passengers United is saying we did not get any support from the public advocate, correct?
In fact, and to be fair to the public advocate, we did not get support from many elected officials. In fact, there's a lot of anger and resentment in Queens because the elected officials sat there. I'll give you the perfect example. And I know my team, doesn't want me to say this, but I'm going to say it anyway. My city council member, who again is supposed to represent me, her name is Natasha Williams. I went to her office as a private citizen, went there, spoke to her chief of staff about the Queens bus redesign. Her chief of staff told me that whatever Senator Leroy Comrie goes with, that she's going to go with and that she's going to support. Now, I'm going to tell you all something here. First of all, if any elected official, for that matter, no constituent should ever be told that, right? The answer is always, what are your concerns? How can we help you? And that sort of thing. Years ago, the elected officials would write courtesy letters on behalf of a potential need. And now the elected officials don't do that much anymore. So I'm being honest with Queens residents. We're not going to lie to any of you guys. It's bad. And when I say the Queens bus redesign is an epic disaster, you're going to see what's going to happen. So let me read this to you. And I'm not even happy with Local 100. I have some major issues with them. So the union gains back work in the Queens redesign grievance, May 21st.
Right.
Now, the union's claiming it went to court, but we couldn't find the court documents anywhere. We couldn't even find the docket. So it
It's
says
arbitration. It's arbitration. They had an
right.
arbitration. Mm-hmm.
So basically it says an April decision by Martin restored work to 3 empty bus depots, which stood to lose routes under the plan. After being informed by management in November of 2023 of major changes to bus routes in the borough of Queens, MT Bus Division Chair Mike Pochi filed a grievance challenging the redesign on the grounds that moving bus routes outside of the MT bus bargaining unit was prohibited by the contract. Mrs. Byers, could you just mute for a second? The original Queens redesign called for bus lines to be moved from LaGuardia Depot to Grand Avenue, one line to be moved from LaGuardia to Fresh Pond, one line to be moved from College Point to Casey Stengel Depot, and one line to be moved from Baisley Park to Jamaica Depot. While most of the moves were within TWU Local 100, some brought work from the TWU to ETU. So a classic example of this would be the Q82, which now runs on a portion of the Q110. So as far as I understand it, Baisley Park got the Q51, the new route, and they're still running the Q110, which is running into ATU territory. But the Q82 is being run by Queens Village, which used to share a portion of the Q110. So I have a feeling it's that route. In an April 2024 hearing before Jack, did you want to finish reading this? Because my throat is a little off.
No problem. So in an April 2024 hearing before the arbitrator, arbitrator Martin Scheinman weighed the evidence and told both parties, TW Local 100 and New York City Transit, to convene and work out their differences. And another hearing held on February 11th of this year resulted in the same instruction from the arbitrator, who didn't want to impose his own bus route design on Queens. At the same time, he determined that, quote, the traditional work performed by the union must be respected, meaning that the union was in the right in objecting to the transferring of work outside its bargaining unit. And the union and management continued discussions, with Local 100 maintaining their position, that the routes are their work, and while doing that, they secured new and existing lines. The parties went back to the arbitrator, who resolved the remaining outstanding route issues by ruling that the Q72 be restored to LaGuardia, with the Q39 going to Fresh Pond. And TWU Local 100 put out another statement saying that the Queens bus redesign was a big success for them.
Okay, Jack, can you read the bottom?
Yeah, well, this is additional gains for TW, according to the article. Capocci and D'Amato also successfully argued in arbitration that a general pick must be conducted because changes were being implemented mid-year. In addition, they won an agreement that training for all the operators on the new work coming in would be at premium pay. And in the end, this is the statement. The Queen's redesign was a major win for TW Local 100.
Okay, so now let's talk about what happened, Jack, with the Sydney, the disabled organization.
Do we want to show the film or
which film? Yeah, we'll get to that in a second. Why don't we talk about what happened with the union? So we had a meeting with Sydney. Sydney is the center of independence for the disability of New York. We had a big meeting with them in February, I believe. And we had discussed with them our desire to sue the MTA on the grounds for people with disabilities, seniors.
They would be disenfranchised by
the Queen's.
We're going to go into that more.
No, but we need to talk about this now. So what happened was Sydney's lawyer, Jack, did you want to mention his name? Or we could just say the lawyer for Sydney. Was also.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Mr. Schwartz, and I'm really disappointed with what he threw us under the bus. No pun intended, but yeah, he threw us under the bus with this because as the general counsel for a disability rights organization, there should be no conflicts of interest. But instead, what we found out after the meeting, weeks later, after not getting back to us, we found out that he was in talks with Local 100 as their lawyer. And he was in talks with Local 100, and Local 100 basically told him that he would lose work with them if he did anything with us regarding the bus stop suit. So he threw us under the bus with that. And I told the reps from Sydney, who were again very gracious in giving us their time, that they need to find a new lawyer for them because they can't keep going on and potentially engaging in these kinds of conflicts of interest that are going to be detrimental to their mission and the welfare of just everyone who has a disability or other condition that limits their ability and their access.
Well, Arthur Schwartz,
this is. Oh yeah, go ahead, Ms. Byers.
Arthur Schwartz's counsel to Local 100. He's not a good lawyer. He has a very, very bad reputation because he's been around for a long time, and a lot of labor lawyers are on retainer by the MTA and unions. And what happens is when you start looking for lawyers to represent you, you sort of come up short because there's not, a large pool of lawyers to choose from. And Arthur Schwartz sort of flaunts himself around as this high-level, top-notch labor lawyer with these years of expertise. However, he's the type of person that, like what happened to you all, will say that he's representing you while at the same time talking or in relationship with the people or entities that do not have your best interests, right? So say he's the type of person that will call the lawyer on the other side and sort of talk about whatever the case or whatever it is that you're going on. So he's he's a shyster. He's not an honest person, and he does a lot of things that hurt the labor movement and hurt organizations. So exactly what happened to you all has happened to many other people who try to use Arthur Schwartz. But if you guys need a recommendation for a labor lawyer to help with the type of suit that you need, I can give you, when we come off, I'll give you a recommendation.
Yeah, thank you, Mrs. Byers. And like Mrs. Byers always says, Arthur's part of the Gang of Five.
Yes,
that's a whole other discussion. But let me tell you, and again, Mrs. Byers, I'm sorry if I'm passionate and angry, but let me tell you,
okay.
I'm ready to go off on all these elected officials. in all
Mm-hmm.
honesty. And this is a mayoral election year, and it's like none of the candidates have raised issues and concerns about this. Nobody seems to care. And we have a Queensborough president who's come out publicly supporting the Queens bus redesign plan. I would like to know, and first of all, don't even get me started with the public hearing last year in August. We
Mm-hmm.
had a rally outside Queensborough Hall. I believe our board member was there, board members were there, we were all there outside. And the Queensborough president, while we were holding our rally, he had the audacity to have a press conference inside Queensborough Hall with the media, telling the media that this was a great plan, basically disputing everything that we had said regarding the MTA. And then when the public hearing started at 6 p.m., what does the Queensborough president do? He goes to a restaurant in Manhattan and tweets about it. And he wasn't even in his own house while a public hearing was
Mm-hmm.
taking place in Queensborough Hall. That is disgusting. That is
Right.
disgusting. And you all know me, guys. I'm not holding anything back. I'm done. And I'm telling all the residents in Queens on the day, on Sunday, June 29th, pay your fare in pennies. Get 290 pennies, put in the fare box, take your own sweet time. And for bus operators, y'all know what to do. Okay? You
Mm-hmm.
all know what to do. Every safety hazard on the road, report it and follow your safety protocols. Do not rush, and do not feel like you have to take abuse from anyone, because I'm going to tell you what's going to happen. People are going to come on the bus, and who's the first person that's going to get the blame, guys? The bus
The
operator.
bus operator,
Everyone's
correct.
going to be screaming at the bus operator. And for all of you listening, for passengers, and you're like, well, no, it's not the bus operator's fault, because first of all, the bus operators had no input in the Queen's bus redesign plan.
Correct.
Let's all call it for what it is, okay? And the
Mm-hmm.
unions, I don't know about ATU, because I know ATU is
Well, I
very
want to
active.
say this. I want to say this. Although, the grievance was won, right, and the work was retained, the fact that the routes and the stops were cut, it does affect the bus operators and their safety, especially when people actually see that this is a real thing, right? So a lot of times when you say, oh, there's a redesign. So when you say redesign, it doesn't sound like a bad thing, right? You're just
No, and they
redesigning
totally did.
something, right? So the language that is being used is deceptive within itself, right? It's really the elimination of bus stops. And if they said, oh, the MTA, New York City Transit, we're rolling out where we're going to be cutting 1,800 bus stops, right? People would be alarmed and go crazy. But if you say we are redesigning the buses, this is going to be a great thing. You have TWU who got a win on their side in the fact of retaining their work, right? However, the long-term implications of what this means is a loss, right? However, to make it seem like they've done something so revolutionary and this is great for labor and we support, it's really not true, right? So it's the language that they've used that has deceived people. And when they're walking around and they're seeing Queens redesign, they don't really understand, they don't get it. Now, when they go out to go catch their bus, right? And the bus stop is no longer there, or they have no way to get to work because there's no buses within, maybe a mile radius of where they live, if the way they did it is in that way, then that's a problem. So the problem is going to arise is that when you get that passenger that gets on, or the strap hanger that gets on the bus, who is angry about the fact that they maybe had to walk a very long distance, or they were late for work, and this may be their last time being late because of, the trains or the subway wasn't working as designed, right? And so that's the issue at hand. So as I hope that this live event that's happening right now helps the strap hangers to understand that the workers, the people who transport you to and from work, have no input into what happens at the transit authority. They ask us not a question or anything of how you feel about what's happened. They just impose their will regardless of how it's going to affect. So let's try to keep everyone safe. Let's continue to rally and to push. And I think once people really get what's happening and they see that they have a group like Passengers United who's really doing the work to make sure that Queens is serviced properly, that we may see a return of some of those 1,800 bus stops that are now eliminated.
Mrs. Byers, what are your thoughts? So there were other nonprofits that came in. And by the way, TWU Local 100 and also I know ATU at some point was giving money to Riders Alliance and for them, and they've done nothing. In fact, Riders Alliance has destroyed, they've caused so much damage in the Queens bus redesign because they came into our communities, put up bus shelter ads, telling people that the Queens bus redesign is a great plan. Jack, do we have the video with them? I think we should show the video now.
Yes, we
Ms.
do.
Byers, we'll get back. We want to get your response to this video.
Okay.
Go ahead, Jack.
All right.
What are the bus network redesigns?
Hold on 1 second. Let me get the, let me make sure that the video's playing. Here we go. Here it is. Here we go. Bear with me. I'm sorry. There's a technical difficulty. We are going to get everything.
What are the bus network redesigns?
The MTA has been redesigning bus routes in every borough to be streamlined, more reliable, and provide better service.
Faster travel, more reliable travel, better connections, ease of use. Those are the things that our customers care about the most.
We made sure to look at bus stops that were close to other bus stops and had the lowest ridership. So we were inconveniencing customers as little as possible and the fewest number of customers.
The MTA has announced that its Queens bus network redesign, 5 years in the making, will start rolling out in June.
It's been over half a century since the current bus network was put in place.
New Yorkers have the slowest buses in the country. The MTA offers an unprecedented opportunity to improve bus service.
That's what they've been saying. Here's what has actually happened.
And you're going to see what's actually happened. And actually, just a few moments ago, you saw those bus shelter ads. There they are. So this is what Riders Alliance was putting up, just as they were in support in the paper, supporting these bus stop eliminations, saying that they were going to speed up the buses. And I have quantitative evidence that that is not the case. But surely enough, they said it, and here's what actually happened.
Oh, wait, Jack. One more thing I want to point out, guys. Riders Alliance did not even bother to come to the Queen's public hearing to issue comments. Just wanted to let you know that. And Alan, we're going to get to you in a bit. Let's just show the video.
Yeah, but these are the bus shelter ads, just for your information.
The MTA offers an unprecedented opportunity to improve bus service.
That's what they've been saying. Here's what has actually happened.
Just the sight of the bus usually means you're on your way.
Oh, it hasn't come by.
Now imagine you're waiting and the bus never comes, or when it does, it skips the stop.
Right now. Where's the bus? People who live in Monhaven or on Willis Avenue that have to catch this bus, they walk down 143rd Street to get the bus here. Okay? MTA now wants us to walk 6 blocks to 149th Street to get on the bus. These are really long blocks.
What's happening is we're inconveniencing a population in the community that really relies on this bus. The accessibility wasn't part of the plan. We have a lot of seniors in our community that if they were included in this plan and they were engaged in the plan, they would have known that this wasn't the bus stop to take away.
This bus stop is still not been restored by the MTA. We're trying to get this bus stop reinstated. So,
can you see seniors with walkers and wheelchairs or anybody standing there waiting for a bus?
But now the bus is back.
That goes to show how when we work together, we get things done. We got our bus stop back.
It also should be a lesson to any city agency or any organization that wants to do something in our community or make any changes to come and talk to the people directly.
The next redesign is in Queens.
Look at the map. It's not there anymore. Where the Q110 makes frequent stops along Jamaica Avenue, the space between stops will nearly double.
Okay, I think it's safe.
Corinne D'Souza moves more slowly after a stroke and rides the Q110 to the doctor. It takes her about 12 minutes to cross the quarter mile to 224th Street. But in a few months, her stop will be eliminated, adding 3 blocks on foot. And it's not an easy walk.
No. Especially in the bad weather.
This Queens Bus Network redesign plan, which will eliminate nearly 1,800 bus stops, will create barriers to access the transit system for senior citizens, people with disabilities, and other vulnerable members of the communities who can't walk farther to get the buses that they're getting right now.
In the time that she walked here, what happens if she misses the bus?
Usually, all these stops are skipped anyway. So all you're doing is making people walk further to get the bus, and the bus won't be traveling any quicker.
How are they going to get to school? How are the elderly going to get to work or get to the programs that they so desperately need?
There were hardly any public hearing posters in any of the buses in Queens. There were no advertising about this meeting on the digital displays.
Nowhere in the equity evaluation are the needs of people with disabilities listed, nor are they listed in the staff summary.
These are double fare zones. These are communities that are outliers. I know that I'm affected in College Point where I live. I'm also affected where I go to work in Jamaica.
We would have to transfer several times, pay more fares, and it would just double the trip.
So we're losing service. This is what they've really screwed this up. They've really hurt our community.
We need more buses, not less buses, and we need to be able to have access.
Each and every one of us need to make our voices heard.
This is not okay for bus riders. We saw the consequences in the Bronx. They will be much worse in Queens. The time to act is now. That's why we're here.
Okay, thank you, Jack. That was a great video. Everyone, we also have comments from Alan Rosen. Before we get back to Mrs. Byers, Alan Rosen is our vice chair. Alan, would you like to say a few words?
I made comments in the chat.
Okay, great. Jack, did we want to read Alan's comments real quick?
Yes, definitely. So Alan wrote just a few minutes ago, they say they are increasing service when they are decreasing it. And also, targeting the lowest usage bus stops for elimination saves no one any time, since those stops are mostly skipped over anyway. And what I found out in my study, I actually did a quantitative analysis on the, it's a preliminary study, so there's much more to get done on the effects that bus stop eliminations have on mobility impaired bus riders. And I used the case from the Bronx that you just saw in the video as a case study. And what I found is that for people with mobility issues, their first and last mile distances, first mile is the distance from their place of origin to the bus stop or the transit stop, and the last mile is the transit stop to their destination. And what I found is that their first mile and last mile travel times, they increased upwards of double, upwards of 2 times what it would take for an able-bodied person, meaning that for someone who has a longer commute to get to their bus and would have to travel whatever distance it is, they see a disproportionate impact. And the promise of faster buses, which, give me a break, the MTA is using false data to justify this. When in their 6 months summary after the Bronx plan went into effect, they called the whole thing a success because they said the bus speeds increased by an average of 2.9%. 2.9%. When you increase the time it takes to get to and from the bus, and it creates barriers to access because a lot of people, they're not going to take the bus anymore if they have a serious mobility challenge that prohibits them from doing so. And the promise of faster buses, their trips became significantly longer, which was the opposite of what the MTA promised in the first place.
Real quick, I do want to
This is
say
proven.
one thing. So I do want to just, before we get to Mrs. Byers' reaction, I do want to jump in and say one thing. We've also now, in fairness to the MTA, but, oh God, we've heard all kinds of rumors that there's fare evasion on the buses. And I'm going to explain to people the MTA. So here's the thing. Most people who live in two fare zones, where there's a bus and a subway, like in Southeast Queens or South Bronx or North Bronx, a lot of the MetroCard vending machines are not working. And that has been the primary cause of fare evasion on buses. Let's just face it. And, in fact, what happens to people who buy a 30-day unlimited and their card gets damaged in the machine, right? All this money that the MTA makes from cards that people couldn't use and they got damaged and they didn't send them in for refunds, or they couldn't get a refund, or their request got lost. Let's talk about that for a second. So the MTA has really treated us really bad in Queens, as you all know. And I do want to say something about Nassau County Express. As all of you know, Nice Buses, which operate in Nassau County, and Beeline Bus in Westchester, which operates in Riverdale and parts of the Bronx, a lot of those two bus systems do not have Omni. So at those stations, like in Jamaica, where Jamaica Center, Parsons Archer, 179th Street, and Main Street, Flushing, the reason why they're seeing a lot of fare evasion is because, again, the MetroCard vending machines, you cannot make a purchase. They don't work. I actually witnessed a guy who lost money. We've actually gotten so many complaints from our members who have tried to buy a MetroCard or try to refill their card, and the machine took their cash but will not give them a 30-day unlimited or a 7-day. And it's been really hard on those people. So that's that. Mrs. Byers, let's get your response to all of this.
Yeah, I did want to add one thing, and that is in discussions that we've had with the MTA and not necessarily their planning team, but also their government relations people who are part of the issue. They told me that, the system's going to become more accessible because we're improving links between all these communities and ADA accessible subway stations. Well, first of all, there's no guarantee the elevators are going to work at that station. And if you can't use it, that's another barrier to access. And secondly, what benefit does this actually give these people if they can't even get to the bus in the first place? So,
also, what about people with disabilities? And Mrs. Byers, before we get to you, real quick, I do want to bring in Mike Howard, because I know Mike Howard has a disability. He lives in Far Rockaway on the A line. He also uses the Q113 and Q114 bus. And, we have tried so much to do as much advocacy as we can for seniors and people with disabilities, because a lot of young people, and many of the young people who have YouTube channels, have been saying this is a great plan, this is great. But what they don't understand, the younger generation, is at some point we're all going to get old, right?
They also don't look at this. They looked at it from a much vaguer and much more limited perspective, where they see a map and they assume that everything's good because, hey, improvement, hey, faster travel, and they don't look at the bigger picture.
So, Jack, let's read his comment. Mike Howard just made a comment. Let's just get to his comment, because I want to get Mrs. Byers' reaction to it.
Yeah, so Mike Howard wrote, Riders Alliance and Center for Independence of the Disabled of New York, they're the same in terms of the incompetency of their lawyers. And that's why he kept his distance from these wannabe grassroots organizations.
Yeah, and I do want to say, in fairness, I know BCID, they were very nice to us. But also, let's hope in the Brooklyn bus redesign that they get more engaged and more involved.
Yeah.
And again, guys, I know these organizations were gracious enough to meet with us, but they have staff there. They should have figured this out, because a lot of people with disabilities are getting their lives are going to change forever because of this bus redesign.
They should have been much more engaged from the very beginning. And I do want to say another point. Another when I brought this issue up many different times, and I brought this up nationally. I've been at there's a national conference I went to last year specifically on transportation equity. No one supported the elimination of 1,800 bus stops. Well, at the time it was 1,400, but no one supported it. But the only people who do support it clearly are they clearly appear to be simple-minded enough to suggest that, oh, people with disabilities, they can just resort to Access-a-Ride. Well, how many, if you go to a New York City Transit Committee meeting or an MTA board meeting, you'll see that there are so many complaints that people who use Access-a-Ride have so many issues with it. And I actually put this in my report as well, including issues with reliability, safety concerns, overcharging of fares, and they tell me, oh, the MTA and these people keep telling me, oh, people can use Access-a-Ride as another option because we want faster buses. What they also don't understand, if they think about the intersectionality of this whole dilemma and this whole issue, so many people with disabilities, a lot of disabilities are invisible, and so many people with disabilities or mobility challenges do not qualify for Access-a-Ride. And for so many people who don't have other options, who don't have a personal vehicle or a family member to take them where they need to go, or money to afford a taxi or Uber or Lyft or whatever it is, a lot of people with lower incomes are going to be affected, are going to be disproportionately harmed. They're going to see an even greater barrier to access than those who do have those options. So it is not only an ADA violation, it's also a violation of the Civil Rights Act.
And since you brought up that issue, Jack, I do want to say, and I discussed this with Mrs. Byers, I also discussed this with ATU, the union. So Hillside Manor, which is a senior living facility, that bus stop has been eliminated. So the Q43 won't be stopping there anymore. That whole bus stop's been eliminated. Why? Why would the MTA do that in front of a senior center? What the hell were they thinking? And it's not only that senior center.
It's very clear they didn't actually do any infield. They didn't do any field work. It's very clear based on what.
So guys, we're coming up on the 7 o'clock hour. We're going to get to Mrs. Byers because we're going to change the theme of the meeting now. We're going to get into the organizing aspect of it. I think we've covered everything on that end. Why don't we read the questions coming in on YouTube? And do we have any comments or questions?
Yeah, let's see what we got.
Yeah, let's, because I know a lot of people have comments and suggestions.
Getting a lot of comments. First of all, one person wrote, I talked about the Queens Bus redesign on my podcast, and I was very concerned by it. I feel for the people who are from Rosedale, Green Acres, Brookfield Boulevard, Merrick Boulevard, and other streets. And then Stephen Bimningston Miller Young agrees. I do have a question, though. Why is the 86, 87, and 89 just replacement routes of the 5 and the 85? Nothing changed about these routes. And the first person, G Money Stacks 555, he said, I feel like the people who live in different areas of Queens are going to be upset with the replacement of the Q5 Limited. Queens bus riders are going to be confused about the 86 and the 87. More concerns about why the Q51 is a rush route, considering that all these routes that are designed to bridge a lot of these gaps are just creating more gaps.
Yeah, and we are going to get into that. So any more questions, Jack, or that was just it?
Yeah,
basically.
Or more comments on some of the specifics about the Q5 and the changes there. And someone else wrote that someone else has been advocating for the B10 to go to Bay Ridge to serve the Maimonides Hospital. It's a must-have for the Brooklyn redesign, and that's something that you can really be vocal about, because we're trying to not only do our part but also empower everyone to really take action, and that's what we've been trying to do for all these years. And we're still.
Any other comments regarding the 78, that route at Queens? So one thing I do want to say before we get into the organizing portion of it, We are going to be holding rallies and press conferences. And believe me, I'm going after all of these people that did not help us in the Queens bus redesign. Their names need to be broadcasted. They need to be exposed, because let me tell you, I don't know if I can say this word, but when the shit hits the you know what on June 29th, it's going to be an epic. This is going to be the biggest public relations disaster for the MTA. Trust me, because people may have not been paying attention, but it was the way they did the outreach, right?
Yeah, it was hugely flawed. And they say they had, and I'll actually go up to that,
but Jack,
that one page on their website.
Jack, but
saying,
let's not get into that. I think what I want people to understand, and this is what I discussed with Mrs. Byers, is, and I did talk to the union. Local 100 has not been responsive to us, but I know ATU told me that they cannot attend rallies with us because they're MT employees and stuff like that. However, when they're off the clock on their own personal time, I don't know why we can't march together. And I think we should. This is a civil rights issue for Southeast Queens and Northeast Queens, and all our brothers and sisters throughout Queens, especially the churches. We have to come together. And unfortunately, me and Jack, we try to get meeting spaces at churches in Queens. Many of the churches were asking us for money. They didn't want to give us meeting spaces. We didn't get cooperation from the pastors. It was really complicated. And there's so much of just craziness going on throughout Queens that this is why the MT was able to get away with what they did, because of all the infighting. So Mrs. Byers, I know, has agreed to come to our rally. She's going to organize many of the transit workers. And I'm going to tell you something. I feel so bad for the bus operators and what they're going to have to go through on the 29th, because it's hard enough driving a bus. And one thing that I forgot to mention, the speed limit in New York City is 20 miles per hour. Let's think about that right now. It used to be 25. It went down to 20.
It's 25, but they're trying to lower it. Well, originally they said they're going to lower in specific parts of the city.
It is 20 now.
But I think it's freer. In school zones it's 20, and they're implementing a lot more 20.
So Jack, let me get to my point. So the concern is, in certain parts of Queens, right? You have to understand, we're dealing with bike lanes on Queens Boulevard in between the bus shelter and the bus stop. And another thing I want to point out to all of you before I forget, a lot of bus shelters are being eliminated as part of the Queens bus redesign. So the bus shelter company that runs the bus shelters, they actually gave Riders Alliance ad space. And I don't know if Riders Alliance paid for it, but they were in agreement with what was going on. And what I found out from the bus shelter company is that they have no incentive of building additional bus shelters, because get this. So when the bus shelter is first built by the city of New York, right, at a bus stop, the city of New York pays for the bus shelter. They give them the bus shelter company, they give them the money to build it. However, once that bus shelter gets vandalized or gets damaged, the advertising money that the bus shelter company makes, they have to pay for it. They have to eat up the cost, and they don't get reimbursement from the city. So the bus shelter companies are like, why should we build additional bus shelters, right? So that's what's been going on in the Queens bus redesign. And as we saw with the Bronx bus redesign, many of the stops lost bus shelters. And I asked the MTA about this, right? And the MTA had no comment for me. And they basically told me to go to DOT. And DOT has been spending millions of dollars on bike lanes, which, many communities need bike lanes. I get that. But why is it that we have bike lanes on Queens Boulevard? And the reason why I'm bringing this up, because in the Queens bus redesign, they've already eliminated a bus stop in front of Wendy's on Queens Boulevard for the Q60 and Q32. And that is a problem because many seniors get off there and use this. So what I'm trying to explain to everyone is these are the factors and these are the things we're being dealt with. So all of you watching the YouTube stream on this conference, I need you to mobilize and tell your friends, family, and coworkers to organize with me, Mrs. Byers, anyone who owns a business. If you own a church, you need to invite us to your church. You need to let us come in and talk to your parishioners, because to go to church, that and you cannot get bus access, that is a civil rights violation, especially for the residents in Southeast Queens. We cannot take this crap from the Queens Democratic Party. And guys, I'm a Democrat, just to let you know. That's, but what I'm saying is we have the Queens Democratic machine. We're supposed to get the best of everything in Queens. How is it we now have to take 2 buses to get to a subway? Will someone please explain this to me? We got screwed. We all got screwed in this bus redesign. And some parts of Southeast Queens are going to be a bigger transit desert than anyone. So what I'm telling residents is on June 28th and that week, I would say right after early voting, after the election is what, June 24th? After the election, we're going to be having rallies, press conferences. And what I'm telling everyone, we got to mobilize and organize like never before. And you know what? Lawyer up now, because you know what? We need to do what was done in the South. People need to get arrested. This needs to be on the news every day. And like I said, I'm going to protest by myself. If people want to join me, they're welcome to join. But we cannot let this go quietly. We cannot let the elected officials and the people who put this plan into place and were in agreement with it go casually. Mrs. Byers, take it away. Set it up for you.
So there's a number of topics that were discussed leading up to now. But one of the ones that stuck out to me were when you were talking about the relationship with Riders Alliance in proximity to the union and the MTA. Unfortunately, this happens in political spaces, right? That people who are supposed to be progressive and on the side of doing the people's agenda, they sort of pander and give their support and their influence, their power and influence to others who are in power and leadership, right? And with that, oftentimes come political favors, jobs, money, different things that the general public will not know about. A lot of time, the people who are organizing with them, who think that they're doing such a great job, do not know what's happening behind the scenes and what's being passed, back and forth that's outside of the public eye, right? And so that's what happens a lot. So that's why you find oftentimes that supposed grassroots organizations that are supposed to be progressive, they have the name, they have movement, but you see no progress. And that's what we're seeing now. What it's going to take is like what we saw in the video that you played, where the residents of Harlem and the Bronx, when they lost their bus stop, right, and they saw how it affected and impacted the community, they came out and they did something about it. This is going to be the same thing that happens in this situation. It's going to take the residents of Southeast Queens to do something about it. So, my recommendation would be to organize around the stations, right? Where people are, because Queens is primarily a two-fare zone, right? If you're going to get anywhere, you have to take the bus to the train. It's usually not just, people don't just have direct access to the trains in Queens based on how, it's laid out. It's very, across the board, Queens is very spatial. So, the buses, you usually are taking a train to a bus or a bus to the train, right? In Brooklyn, you can just take the train. You don't necessarily have to ever take the bus. But in Queens, it's a different reality. And so for seniors, I think, too, talking to pastors and leaders, because it's going to affect the elderly population, because they're the ones who take the bus, right? You see them on Sunday morning, standing at the bus stop, waiting for their bus to go to worship. And so, like I said, it's very deceptive the way it's being rolled out across the city. That this is redesign happening in Bronx, Queens. These are in Brooklyn. It's not a redesign. It's an elimination of bus stops. And the people are watching and they don't understand, because the way they've marketed it to the public, it's deceptive. And so that's what you're going to have to deal with. But I think the idea of being ready for the day that it rolls out, to be there in the community as a support and organizing and helping them to, at the locations where people are, to be ready to take telephone numbers and email addresses. And we'll talk about these things offline, so that they can sort of advocate for themselves to get it back. And also, this will help the bus drivers who really have no say to what's going on and ensure that everyone stays safe.
So, Mrs. Byers, I have a question for you. Do you think because of the Queens bus redesign that assaults on bus operators will go up?
I think they will. Based on what we've seen in the past, as far as assaults, and a lot of times, let me be also clear. A lot of times we find that our operators, they don't report their incidents, or if they do, sometimes the incidents that they report are not documented. So we don't even have the factual and actual numbers of how many people are assaulted, spit on, and harassed, because a lot of times, due to being fearful of retaliation and other things, they don't report their injuries. We hear about it offline, right? And try to encourage people to do it, but sometimes just for the sake of trying to keep their job and not be retaliated against, it's not reported. So I know that a lot is going to happen on that day, especially because people are going to be in shock that they're going to go to their bus stop and it's not there anymore. And they don't know how it's been rolled out. And also when it comes to youth and showing them maps and everything else, they have no idea about policies and how these things are coming into play. You show them a nice little newly designed map and they're like, oh, this is cute, this is cool. But they don't understand the impact and the greater implication of what's going on.
And also in terms of students, because a lot of students take the bus. And I will say, guys, we have gotten a lot of complaints from parents about their young children being accosted on the bus by fare inspectors and being given summonses. And I spoke to, we told the MT, the fare inspectors have to understand. I know the students get Omni cards now, which give them 4 or 5 trips, but the Omni cards are very flimsy. They're literally paper Omni cards, and sometimes they don't work on the readers, and that's been a big issue. What advice, Mrs. Byers, do you have for parents of high school and junior high and elementary school students for summer school? Because summer school takes effect on the 29th of June. I think after that.
Parents should be reporting this directly to the principals at the school so that they can advocate on behalf of the school district, or they can do it themselves. Again, politically, the areas that's supposed to handle this, your city council, your state assembly, even your district leaders, your public advocates, they're not really accessible, right? And so when people go to make complaints, unless you know where your city council person's office is, or how to get in direct contact, a lot of times their complaints fall on deaf ears, unless you really know how to get into these spaces, right? And that they're supposed
Please
to be
stand by.
available to you. So the students, their parents are going to have to reach out to the public advocate's office, reach out to the principals of the school to make sure that they know what's going on, and also that instruct the students on what to do if they are accosted by a fare enforcer.
Yeah, because some of these fare inspectors are undercover and they're like Rambo. They're like Rambo, man. They're just pushing people off the bus. And you know what? Sometimes I think we all need to take a step back and put ourselves in people's positions. Because, and you know what? In the years of me being an advocate, I've learned a lot. Sometimes, I'm not making excuses for anyone. Sometimes you'd be surprised on MetroCard, sometimes the transfers don't come on the fare box.
Right.
And sometimes the machines are broken and people get on the bus and it's embarrassing. People don't have the fare.
Well, they've already started changing over to Omni.
But Omni machines are broken, and that's another thing. Half the Omni machines are broken. The touch screens are horrible.
Well, it's going to take time because because it's a new system, it's definitely going to have glitches, right? Things are going to
Yeah.
go wrong.
Yeah, but there's been a major
But
one too.
the
Yeah.
station agents and who are at the station, you know, they will report what's going on and also assist to the best of their ability as they can with what's happening, right? Again, we all know that none of us have input. The station agents, the CTAs, the security guards that are at the gate, nobody is told what is going to happen. These things just roll out, right?
So, Mrs. Byers, what is your advice to bus operators on June 29th who are going to be working? What encouragement, what motivational support would you give them?
Well, they know
and how to deal with the public.
Well, they know the way they usually assist the public to you know, to continue to do they know how to do their jobs. I would say if people are yelling and screaming, take the bus out of service, right? Call it in. Once it's an unsafe condition or you are unsafe, don't continue to operate the bus in a hostile environment that may lead to you getting hurt or others, right? Make sure that you're ensuring that you're safe. And when you're safe, it helps to make sure that everybody else is safe. And so that's what I would instruct. If people are, you know, threatening to harm you, if they're spitting, if they're, you know, kicking windows out, if they're vandalizing, you know, don't keep operating. You know, make sure you stay safe. The goal is to make it home. And so we just have to make sure that we put our safety over service. We were not consulted about anything that is happening. And so as the stops have now been eliminated and people begin to realize that this is not really a redesign and elimination, we have to ensure that we put our safety above service. So that's what I recommend to the operators.
And one thing I would say to all the bus operators, and this is, we are going to do some de-escalation videos as well. I also think that we all need to be sympathetic to the passengers. And I think a smile would help. And I also think, I would say, if I was a bus driver, I would just tell people, I do apologize sincerely. But here's the information you need to know so you can get home. And let's all try to work together. The MTA has really ruined this. And our bus, we have the best bus operators. You guys are the greatest. I know many of you have invited us to your homes for barbecues, for picnics, for events. God bless all of you. But at the same time, I just want all the bus operators to please read up before the Queen's Bus redesign. Let's all be sympathetic. Let's all help people. Because remember, guys, June 29th, it could be 100 degrees. What happens to that senior citizen who's 72 years old and has to walk 7 or 8 blocks? By the time they get on your bus, they could possibly faint because of the heat stroke. We need to keep that in mind. We really need to keep that in mind, that could happen. And one thing I do want to discuss with you, Mrs. Byers, which hasn't been talked about. So overnight, as you know, many people work overnight, and many women and guys have reached out to us concerned about their safety because now they're going to have to walk in the dark 7 or 8 blocks to a bus stop at like 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning. And so we wanted the MT to return to the system where they had request a stop, where the bus would stop in a safe, where the bus driver would stop the bus in a location that is safe for the operator to make that stop. And this would be, you know, anywhere along the route. What are your thoughts on that?
They have to advocate for it. They should advocate for it so that they can ensure that the transit authority implements it. You know, we know where the high crime areas are. And if the stops have been eliminated in those areas, then, you know, they have to, again, it comes down to advocacy. And as these things happening, showing up and making sure that they let their voices be heard. Donovan Richards is the borough president. He has the ability to use his office and his voice to make sure that all of his constituents are safe. the fact that he's not taking it serious, listen, we got to get back to, we have sort of, as a people, as those of us who call us, who are, under the Democratic umbrella, right? We have to begin to organize like never before and put in our own political systems, right? Because this is not working for us. We've allowed them to stay in power for too long, and power unchecked, corrupts
And
and
in
hurts.
all honesty, I will say some elected officials, very few of them, I would say, have been good on the bus redesign. But what I'm saying is, I don't understand. Many of these elected officials used to ride the bus themselves.
I would say not enough to where it impacts. Listen, my frustration right now.
Alan, can you mute, please?
My frustration right now in electoral politics is that we don't have a really good infrastructure anymore, right? We're losing because these people have been in power for years and years and years. And now they've set themselves up with these machines that is almost impossible to beat. They can be beat, but it's almost impossible if you just decide one day, you know what, I'm tired of this, I'm going to run. You'll never beat them, right? So what I mean by that, if we want to see the Democratic Party be respected again,
one thing I just want to say, a side note, Mrs. Byers, like we're not allowed to get into like political, like that deep political discussion, because remember that, we're a nonprofit. But I will say this, there have been very few elected officials who did meet with us. I would say out of all, I think we met with 2 or 3 elected officials. So Brother Khalil Anderson, big shout out to you. You know who you are in Far Rockaway. God bless you. Khalil Anderson liked our ideas. He actually looked at our report. So a big shout out to Khalil Anderson. And there was another city council member in Northeast Queens who met with us, and God bless her. So there are very few. But one thing I will say is people were asking me in the comments, how do we organize? And so here's what I need all of you to do. We have bus posters that we've created. Jack, can we show the posters we've created? Let's just show people the posters. And we're going to putting these templates up on our website. I know the lady from the Q101 bus. I don't know if she's with us tonight, but the people in Astoria, we've been working with them. Jack, can we show the posters if we have them?
Well, on your posters, do we let them know how they can get in contact with you and how they can attend the meeting?
Yes, we're going to show you all that right now, Ms. Byers. So this is one of where it says we're suing to save your bus stop and your access to the bus, and we need plaintiffs. If you have a mobility issue and will be disenfranchised by the elimination of your bus stop or change to your bus route in the Queens Bus Redesign, please fill out a form to become a plaintiff at passengersunited.org, QBN, and what is that, Jack, at the end?
The last one is R, and this is all on our website too. And if you recall, when I was showing you the website, it's one of the first links that you can click on, and it takes you right to the form. And unfortunately, given our financial constraints, because we barely have any money to our name, we're trying to
that's another thing I do want to say, guys. For all of you watching on YouTube and social media, I just want all of you to know we're all volunteers. We don't get paid for this. We all work our regular jobs, and including Mrs. Byers too. So Mrs. Byers runs her own coalition of stuff. She's not affiliated with us at Passengers United, like she doesn't, but we at Passengers United, we're all volunteers. And the fact, I just want to say the fact that we've done more than Riders Alliance and TransAlt and all these other so-called advocates who don't even show up to empty meetings. They only show up when they need their 15 minutes of fame. That is something that I'm so proud of. And I just want to thank Jack Nirenberg. I want to thank Alan Rosen. I want to thank our chairman. I want to thank our treasurer, Karina Nieves, and our secretary. I want to thank Sandra. I want to thank Yuki Endo. I want to thank Mike Howard, Andy Pollock, Matt Camper. Who else can I think of? Pine Power. Just all the people who have been with us from the very, very beginning here at Passengers United. And also Andrew, who always keeps us posted on updates and also David Kofferberg. All of you, I'm so proud of all of you. I know we've had our differences and arguments. Everyone has on this plan, but God bless all of you. And I just want to thank all of you that have followed us on social media. You guys get it, you understand it, and we're so blessed and honored. So yeah, Jack, let's just show the posters real quick so Mrs. Byers and everyone can see. And so I spoke to ATU, and ATU said they were going to share posters and stuff. But let's look at the posters. And let's see,
Yeah,
Jack,
so
can
we
you
have
pull it up?
Yeah, so we have a bunch of them, and I did want to add as well, given our financial constraints, we do have to we're trying to take a more creative approach, but one that will actually get us somewhere. So as we've been developing our strategy, I've been reaching out to several different law firms, several different pro bono disability rights. I focus specifically on disability rights because I know that trying to get everything restored is not going to be realistic. But what is the most important thing in this plan that has to be addressed? And there is a route to actually get there, and that's the bus stop eliminations. So what we're trying to do, and I think it was either one or two of the firms that I reached out to only do individual cases, individual disability cases. And I think that's the route that this appears to be going in. So by filling out the form, it would give us hopefully enough information that we can empower you to take action as a plaintiff in your own case. And if we get enough people to hopefully develop a class action, we can make real progress with this.
So what would be class action lawsuits? So for instance, in some cases, bus stops have been so let's look at the signs and then we'll get to that. So this is so I did some postering on the Q101 route. I actually spoke to a lot of the residents out there. So again, if anyone listening on the social media or the YouTube stream, if you need posters for your particular bus route, we can send you these templates so that you can go and make copies and put it up for your particular route. And that's one of the things we need to train bus advocates to go out on their particular routes. Because I'm going to be honest, on June 29th, everyone's going to be trying to alert people for their own bus routes. So if we build a coalition in Queens, we can really embarrass the hell out of the electeds and the MTA. So for instance, these were the posters we did on the Q110. We did
posters aren't showing. The posters aren't showing yet. It says Passengers United has started sharing a screen sharing, but it hasn't come up yet.
I'm so sorry, Jack, and we're having issues.
Oh, there it goes. I see them now. Is this say attention? The Queens, that one?
Yeah, yes, that's the one. So this is the Q101 poster. In case you didn't see it yet, originally this was going to go together with the contacts of the state legislators who live in the district of the bus stop that's eliminated. We have these for the Q110 as kind of a trial, given that I know the Q110 is a pretty significant barrier to access for a lot of people. Again, and then this would be the bus stop is being eliminated. And then, of course, we have more specifically targeting those with limited mobility who would qualify to potentially be a plaintiff in an ADA case.
And so guys, we're getting some comments from people on different bus routes. So one member wanted to know, how can we have a protest? How do we go about doing that in front of an elected official's office? All you have to do is go to the NYPD Community Affairs officer in your particular police precinct, tell them that you want to have a rally outside an elected official's office. And what they'll do is they'll give you like a pin, or they'll just have like an officer there. And if you need, like, if you want to use sound equipment, like a bullhorn or a megaphone, you need to get a $35 sound permit. So just let the officers know. And you can also ask us and coordinate with us and invite us to organize your rally for you. We can also do that as well. So we are going to be holding a bunch of rallies and press conferences. Like I said, guys, we're not going to go quiet against this. All hell is going to break loose on the 29th and after the 29th as well. So we're going to keep, until the elected officials realize they've done messed up. And, you know, we have to do this. And I feel bad for you in Brooklyn, all of you in Brooklyn and Manhattan. Pay attention to what's happening in Queens, because, you know, the Bronx, there was a lot of anger in the Bronx when they did the Bronx bus redesign. And there's one thing I do want to say. Some parts of Queens are getting more service now, and the parts that really need service are getting less service. And like, for instance, the Q88, that's a perfect example I can think of. So I know we've been reached out to from Leaf Rock City because the Q88 doesn't run overnight. Well, it never has run overnight, but in the bus redesign, it should, because all the housing projects over there, those buildings, there's thousands of residents over there, many below the poverty level, and many of them work night jobs, and they need buses at 1 o'clock, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. So the fact that the 88 is not running overnight in the bus redesign, and at the bare minimum, there should be a bus at least every 30 minutes. The fact that's not happening is nuts to me. That is a big flaw in the Queens bus redesign. Other flaws that we can think of, and this was something that former MT employees had mentioned to me who used to work in operations planning. Why is it that buses end at the county line, at the Queens borderline, right? I think the only exception to that is the QM 64. And for some reason, they have the bus going to Dutch Broadway. I would like to know who lives on Dutch Broadway that the MT went out of their way to extend the bus to Dutch Broadway, but they couldn't extend the Q82 into Elmont, right? For those residents. And they couldn't extend.
For the 64, I think it was because the original Q4
Yeah, George,
was going to.
Yeah, raise your hands, please. Thank you.
Okay.
I get the point you're trying to make, George. Yeah, so George, go ahead.
Yeah, so I think with the 64, I think it was because the Q4 was originally going to go there, but they couldn't figure out a turnaround. I mean, and I guess that was their compromise to send the 64 in there instead, because then it could just head right to the Queens Village Depot.
Right. And so that brings up a very good point. So Alan has been raising this point. And so one thing I do want to say for Queens, which I'm sure many of our listeners don't know, the MTA bus company was the 7 former private companies that used to run Jamaica Bus, Triborough, Command, which ones am I forgetting? Help me out here. Green Bus Lines, New York Bus Service. So all the 7 private bus companies in 2006 merged with the MTA, and it became part of the MTA bus company. So what's happening in Queens that we're noticing is a lot of the MTA bus company routes, we're noticing they're cutting a lot of the service and trying to merge them. And this is what's happened. So it's not a bus redesign, it's glorified budget cuts, as we've all been saying. And so Alan raised a very good point about the revenue miles and having more buses out of service. Alan, did you want to touch on that? Because that is a very good point.
Yes, the MTAs refused to release the revenue miles and hours, which would show that if service is being increased or decreased. If they're increasing service, they have nothing to hide. Why wouldn't they release it? The only reason not to release it is that they're decreasing service. Charles, can you send me a copy of the flyer right now? I want to put it on.
Yeah, we'll send you the copy. We'll send it to you after the meeting.
Yeah, we're definitely going to be sending everything.
Everyone's going to get it.
Because I want to put it on change.org.
Sure. And Alan, did you want to talk about your petition real quick on change.org? Why don't you
There's a petition on change.org where I'm doing an update right now. I want to put your flyer in it. Petition has over 3,300 signatures already, and but the MTA is ignoring us. That's why we have to sue.
Yep. And so, thank you, Alan. So why don't we just show everyone there? It is. That's the petition link to Alan. It's on change.org. We also have a link for the Q101 bus. Jack, do we have the petition for the Safe Q101 bus? Because I don't know if she's on here. We sent her the link, but I don't know if she came on here.
Yeah, I have to look for it.
Yeah, there's a petition to save the Q101. And by the way, those of you in Astoria, we love you. I was on the Q101 bus. I rode the bus in February. I spoke to all of you. You guys are riled up in Astoria, and it's not right. The fact that they're trying to gentrify the route and send it further down so some hipsters can go to their nightclubs. Meanwhile, the seniors who need to go to doctor's appointments and medical appointments cannot get the Q101 over the 59th Street Bridge. And since we're on that subject, one thing in this plan that the MT is royally screwed up is night owl bus service. Everyone thought we were going to get at least 2 night owl bus routes in this plan. We did not. And so that's been a big issue. We're getting comments coming in. So Mike Howard said, even Yankley or BCID is the best director of advocacy that I have known for over a decade. I also like his colleague. Okay, well, Joe Rappaport, he needs to work with us. I have some opinions on that. Has one single elected official opposed the plan? I believe, yes, some community boards have opposed the plan. And don't even get me started on Community Board 13 in Queens. They did nothing on the plan. They did. You can't even go to their office. The office is padlocked. That's been a hot mess over there. But we're going to be having a rally outside Community Board 13 too. We're doing that. We're working on that. Jack, can we go to YouTube real quick before we get back to Mrs. Byers on the comments coming in?
Yeah,
And
I
if
did want to
there's
show
any-
you one thing. This is following up on what Alan was saying about the proposed revenue miles and hours.
Oh, sorry.
I submitted a FOIL request for that specific information back on January 6th. And they said that this was going to take, initially, what was it? 30 business days. And they've kept pushing it back. They pushed it back in March. They pushed it back again for another 30 days. And now, today, I got another notification that they're pushing it back again. What on earth is the hesitation about giving me this information? I requested it.
To
Do I
answer
have to
that
go forward for
question,
that?
Jack.
Because it shows a cut in service. That's why they're not giving it to you.
Right.
Well, they're legally obligated to. They're legally obligated to give me that information.
So what
And
I'm
there's no
going to
excuse
say,
for what they're doing.
so Jack, what I'm going to say to all of you, when we start protesting outside the elected officials' offices, and again, it cannot be one day, it has to be every other day, where at least 6 of us have to do this and get it on video. And I will tell you, our Q110 bus riders in Queens Village, there's going to be some chaos on the 29th. Trust me. And we're going to be marching and everything. So, yeah, elected officials in Southeast Queens, y'all better wake up because it's going to be hell on the 29th. I'm letting y'all know now. And so some people have told me they're going to march with us. We're going to be marching down Hollis Avenue. We're going to be doing that. Big shout out to the 105. I spoke to the 105th precinct and we're working on getting that going. But again, this just goes to show you what my colleague Jack is showing you. So many of you have reached out to us and said that things have been ignored. And also, Jack, one thing I want to say is we also got the FOIL request for all the comments in the Queen's Bus redesign. Jack, did
Yes,
we
we
want to show
did.
them that on our website as well?
Absolutely. So if we go back on our website and we go back into here, I'm going to share this again. If we go back into the Queens Bus Network redesign portal, what you'll see is a button that says read others' comments about the plan. Originally, it was just comments from the 2022 draft, but as per my FOIL request submitted months earlier, we finally have the comments from the December 2023 version, as well as comments from the public hearing period. And these are all available on our website. And they're sorted by date. And they came in from various places, including the MTA's website, which is Salesforce. That's the portal that they use for public comments. And then other comments on Remix, which are a lot more specific because they're part of the interactive map. And this goes all the way down. And you can see that we have thousands of public comments, as well as from the public hearing period. So all of this was provided to us under duress. I'm just kidding, but they're legally obligated to give us that information. This is, I mean, anything that the MTA does is public information because they are a public agency. They're a
So
state
one
agency.
thing I
They're
do
subject
want to
these
say,
laws.
Jack, not to cut you off, but I do want to stress this to everyone. The MTA has never had accountability in the sense that the way the agency is created, it's a public agency, a public authority, it's a state public authority that no one is accountable for. The local electeds will say, oh, it's a state issue. Everyone's playing the blame game. But the elected officials appoint the board members, especially the state elected officials. Yeah. And the city of New York, by the way, has a lot of power in the Queens bus redesign. Any elected official like Natasha Williams who tells you this is a state issue, it's not a city issue. No, screw that. Because the city of New York pays the MTA bus company and New York City Transit the money that they were giving to the 7 private bus companies. They also get federal funding. So again, the lies, the manipulation, it needs to end. It really does. And I will just say all of this, we need to hold the mayoral candidates who are running, every elected official, not only the mayoral candidates, but every elected official who's running on June 29th, no matter what party or affiliation, they all need to be held accountable and they all need to tell us what is their plan, right, for the Queens bus redesign. And I do want to stress something. The MTA keeps telling us we have no money, right? Like we wanted the Q43 extended to LIJ Hospital. We wanted the Q78 route that would run from Far Rockaway to Bayside, which is actually what high school, junior high school parents wanted. The unions wanted that route. Even some of the electeds wanted that route. But surprisingly, they've been told there's no money. And I want to say one thing to all the elected officials and their staffers listening to this YouTube stream. How is it that we have money to build bike lanes all over the city? We have money for daylighting, which I understand it's going to be close to $3 billion. We have money for open streets, all this money, which don't get me wrong, but we don't have money for bus shelters, and we're seeing cuts in the Queens bus redesign. Explain this to me. Explain this to all of us, actually, really. And so, like I said, the level of incompetency, anger is going to come out on the 29th. And like I said at the MT board meeting, June 29th and August, 29th is going to be Judgment Day, right? Because remember, it's a Sunday. What do people do on Sundays? They go and pray. Whether you go to a temple, a church, or whatever, you pray, right? Like I said, organize your members. And one thing I know, a lot of people tend to gravitate and organize around, their religious activities and stuff like that. We encourage you, get mobilized, get organized like never before, because in some cases, you're going to be paying an extra fare every day to go to work, which is your God-given civil right. You should have the same opportunities as people in Manhattan, people in different portions. And like Alan said, Alan made a comment about Manhattan. Alan, do you think they're going to do these cuts in the Manhattan bus redesign?
I doubt it. The Upper East Side is just too powerful, which is why nighttime bus service in Manhattan is still like every 15, 20, or 30 minutes, while in Queens, most routes is an hour or they don't run at all.
Yeah, and so thank you, Alan. And also we've gotten comments. And Alan, by the way, I do want to say the Brooklyn bus redesign, there is some good news. We've actually been invited by the churches in Brooklyn. We've already done presentations. Alan's done presentations out there. Let me tell you something. Brooklyn is a whole other beast. And let them try to pull this crap in certain parts of Brooklyn. Oh boy, they're going to be met with the heavy resistance because those churches have been organizing. So I really wish we had the support in Queens, but there's just so much crap going on in Queens, guys. But we can pull this together. And I think one of the goals out of this meeting tonight that I want all of us to do is expect more from the MTA. Why is it that the Q27, right? Jack, can we pull up the Q27 Queens bus redesign map? I want to show everyone this. And I'm sorry, guys. I know if I'm talking a lot about Southeast Queens a little bit, is because Southeast Queens is going first in the Queens bus redesign. Western Queens and Northern Queens, y'all don't start to take effect till August 29th. So the Q27 is ending at 120th Avenue and Francis Lewis Boulevard. This is the stupidity we're dealing with in Southeast Queens. Let's look at this for a second. Let's just zoom in on that map, Jack. Let's look at the stupidity that's going on. So they've ended the Q27 over there, right? Now, if you're calling this a bus redesign, at the bare minimum, wouldn't you extend the Q27 to go to Merrick? Jack, can you pull up the map and show them how the distance between there and Merrick? And the MT says, oh, we extended the Q27. But what about people who are going to Bayside High School or Cardozo High School and who live in Rosedale? What about those people? Did anyone? This is the stupidity. And if I was an elected official in Queens, I would be embarrassed by this. Absolutely embarrassed. Really. I've spoken to staffers for months on this. The staffers are telling me the shit is going to hit the you know what on the 29th. So even the staffers are having issues with this plan. I mean, really, it's just we need to revolt, organize like never before. And you know what? We need to call for the chairman of the MTA to resign. I think he's been too proud. He's been boasting with this. And like I said, guys, I don't want to say anything else, but in terms of some people, I think they need to be held accountable. This is criminal, what's been going on. Really, it's disgusting. These are just glorified budget cuts. Really. Don't even call this a redesign. So again, I don't want to go on. Do we have any comments on the YouTube stream, Jack? And we do. I'm going to read the comments.
We do. Yes. One other person wrote, also Demetrius Critchlow. Another person wrote, they are responsible for the whole congestion pricing that's screwing people over.
Oh, yes. Don't even get me started on that. And many of the elected officials who support the Queen's bus redesign also supported congestion pricing. And so because of all of this crap, people have now been forced to take the bus and subway. And you would think they would have reduced the LIRR city ticket to $275. We have been fighting for that. So they did, during the Far Rockaway shutdown of the A train, they actually reduced the Far Rockaway ticket price to $275, and you could buy a one-way ticket from Far Rockaway to Grand Central or Penn Station, and they even had a round-trip ticket. Why can they do that for the city ticket LIRR? I don't understand the logic of that, because that would help. And by the way, guys, there are some cuts, bus stop cuts to LIRR stations in Queens Village. So those of you who use the bus stop at Amboy Lane in Springfield, and you get off from the Hempstead train, you now have to walk back to Jamaica only to go forward to Kimmer Heights. Just a side note there. And again, guys, that's another stupid blunder of the Queens bus redesign. But yes, congestion pricing was supported by Riders Alliance and Transalt. Me personally, I was on the Congestion Pricing Environmental Justice Committee. I think we were the only nonprofit on that committee, along with other nonprofits from the South Bronx. And Riders Alliance and Transalt and Open Plans was nowhere to be found on that committee. It just goes to show you. And I do want to give a big shout out to Clarissa in the Bronx, because she did a lot of the organizing and advocacy around saving the bus stops there.
Yeah, and you saw that in the
then
video
we showed
too.
the video. Yeah. And we all, and you know, Clarissa, she's always been a great organizer, and we need organizers like that in Southeast Queens. So those of you on this call who want to organize in your community, we are going to be having a special training workshop on how to organize bus riders for the 29th. We will have that. You're going to have to email us on social media. Just DM us, send us your phone number and email, and we will sign you up for the training course. And we will work on that. And I think Mrs. Byers, it's now 7:52, so we do want to close out. Let's read more comments on the YouTube as well. Do you have any more?
Yeah, a lot more of them are about specific bus routes. Yes,
So let's
the
give people
Q34 is going to be discontinued. and the Q27 is also not going to be running by Holly Avenue. And the Q78, Frederick Wells said that the Q78 is needed, further extended as a JFK Airport Halmar to Westchester Square route.
Okay.
A lot of these
let's read all
comments
the
are,
comments on YouTube. Let's give them, because I know they can't, I know many of them have comments and they can't get on here. So let's read their comments.
yeah, a lot of them are regarding, and again, thank you all for really being respectful and courteous of each other. I know that we all have, again, a diversity of opinions, and we're
Jack,
all
can
here
we,
because
how
we
many
have a
comments
common
are there?
goal.
Can we read some of them?
Yeah, let me pull that up again. Yeah, so one person wrote that in response to what we were saying before, also money for luggage racks on the front buses.
Mrs.
sorry, what was
Byers,
that?
can you mute? We're going to come to you in a second, Mrs. Byers. Give us a second.
Yeah, so a lot of these were in response to what we were saying as well. Everything was a lot more comments on the Q5. Oh, yes. David Shansky, and forgive me if I'm mispronouncing anything, he said, I really wanted that Q78 bus to be added, the one that we were proposing, the north-south one that would connect Queensborough Community College to the Bayside Railroad Station and the Bay Terrace Shopping Center. It was at least a new idea for that area.
Like I said, people, we need to revolt just over that alone. We need to revolt. Why is it now in my neighborhood where I live in Belmont Park, if I want to go to Green Acres Mall, we still have to take 3 or 4 buses in the Queens bus redesign. So I agree with those comments. And also LIJ, Long Island Jewish Hospital. Many of you have been requesting that bus route, and we feel your pain. Adam is here as well. So yeah, keep going, Jack.
Yeah, so that's basically it for the most part. And
Okay.
everything that we were getting before, I think we went over.
Okay. Mrs. Byers, take it away, because I know you got some stuff to say.
No, I'm just thankful for you all for having me on. This was a great discussion. I think that your fight is one that is noble, and I think you're gonna win. I
And
believe
Mrs.
you're gonna win.
Byers, I have a quick question for you. In the Queens bus redesign, right? One thing we've noticed, they're merging a lot of routes where the Q110 has taken ATU's routes. So Queens Village Bus Depot bus drivers, they get paid more than MT Bus Company. And one thing we heard, the pensions, the driver pensions were cut for was it for MT Bus or for New York City? No, they don't want to pay it for New York City Transit side. That's what it was. So did you have any comment on that? Like how you feel, what the bus operators can do? Because again, I want to make something clear. A lot of us all live in the same neighborhoods, right? We're all affected by this in some way. So I know the bus operators are going to organize too. Once they start doing these routes and they start seeing the safety conditions and everything, I know there's going to be an uprising there. Any
remember,
suggestions?
the issue that you have is that you have the union who, in my opinion, got a partial win, right? And due to that, and wanting to look big before the membership, is going to tout it as, oh, we did this magnificent thing, look what we did. And then once it's implemented, everybody will see that it's not, right? And so anything at this point that has to be dealt with is going to have to go into effect because they've already championed it, right? They've already said that, hey, we got this win. This is what we've done. We've secured this, we've secured that. It's not until it goes into effect and, it starts to work as designed for the transit authority that then the workforce will begin to understand how much they've taken a hit and a loss, and how they may have been a violation of, of work when it comes to ATU and TWU. But we have to wait till this happens to see how it all plays out.
Right. And so one thing I will say, I know some bus operators have told me, oh, we make less stops, so it's better. It seems that way, but when you deal with the aggravation and all that stuff, it's not going to work out. And the speed limit, like I was trying to say before, is 20 miles per hour on most of these streets now. It's gone down. And the traffic that was there yesterday is still going to be there tomorrow. That's not changing. So the buses are still going to be stopped to that red light. And maybe that red light is by a bus stop that was eliminated. And one thing I did want to mention that was brought up by one of our members, in the Bronx, when they did the Bronx bus redesign, and with the Queens bus redesign, the eliminated bus stop signs are still going to be up after the Queens bus redesign takes effect. So what happens if a passenger is waiting there? As you saw in our video, right? There were passengers waiting for the bus in the Bronx, and I had to tell them that the bus stop was eliminated and they had to walk 7 blocks to the next bus stop. What so in terms of discipline, because sometimes and people have a right to complain, right, if they feel they've been passed up and a bus passed them. But what do you think that's going to create any confusion? Because let's say if eliminated bus shelter, a bus stop, which is no longer a bus stop, but the existing infrastructure is still there, and the bus stop sign is there, and the passengers waiting and the bus bypasses them. Do you think that, like, if somebody calls and complains, that could hurt the driver? And what's the remedy for that? Because
Well, it won't hurt the driver in a sense because they moved the stop. But what will happen with the again, what the public is going to have to do is like what you said. You all are going to have to work together to get this fixed. The same kinks that we saw happen in the Bronx are the same kinks that are going to happen in Queens. And from what you're saying, this seems like it'll be even worse than what we saw happen in the Bronx. And I
yeah,
know just from being someone who drives to Queens, or when I do take the train to Queens, or when I used to go, like I had a friend that lived in Springfield Gardens, I would have to get off of the E train, and then I would take. Hold on one second.
okay. So while we get back to Mrs.
In the Bronx, they had to restore 150 of the 400 eliminated stops.
Yeah, I would have to get off the train and catch the bus. So if they're eliminating these stops, or you have to take extra,
travel
like you have
time.
to take 2 or 3 buses to get to one location, that's a huge inconvenience. And just that commute alone is crazy, right?
Yep.
Of getting off the train, because and it's not a short run. I don't know how many, buses have been eliminated for Queens Village, but it was already hard to get service there. I used to attend church in Queens Village on Sunday morning, and a lot of times you have to jump into a dollar cab, right, to get down there. So if you eliminate more service, then it really does affect the public. So
And I
we
do
just
want to
hope.
say one thing, Mrs. Byers, since you touched on that point about the dollar cabs. So you know what's taken over the dollar cabs now? Uber. And many of the MT officials and the other organizations are getting money from Uber and Lyft, Riders Alliance, Transalt. And trust me, Uber is going to love this because they could do surge pricing, they can rip people off. That needs to be, seriously, that is a whole other thing that's disgusting. I'm sorry. And many of us don't use Uber. We don't like Uber because, I feel like, the community should have their own cabs, and as much as people criticize the dollar cabs, I will say this: they live in the neighborhood and they provide a service, right, to the residents. Why didn't the MT take all this time to work with them, right? Because there are some routes where, like for instance, 223rd Street, or I'll give you an example, parts of Rosedale where there's no bus routes. The dollar cabs, or maybe you could call them shuttles. Maybe they could work for the MT and pick up people, be licensed, right, and be verified and put through the system so that people have another alternative. But
Well,
again,
there was there was a law that was drafted. I think it was by the public advocate who was behind it to create alternative transportation methods along like city streets and things of that nature. And I believe it went into effect. So, you know, all of these things, when you start to look at it, it's just like, you know, they saw one thing coming, and as a result, say, well, let's create this so that they can, you know, operate other modes of transportation. So you never really know what's happening until it actually rolls out, because the devil is in the details, and you have to go read the actual law and take time to read through it all to actually find out what is really going on. So
yeah, so Mrs. Byers, we just got a comment from one of our members. Please show us how to file a Title V complaint. Jack, can we, that's another thing I forgot to tell you guys. So we are going to be doing workshops on how to file a civil rights complaint with the Federal Transit Administration. Again, red alert to all Queens residents. Jack, we're going to be hosting these classes. We might even put it up on our YouTube channel to show people. I encourage everyone in Queens who's affected by the Queens bus redesign, flood the MTA with complaints. And we want you to send the title, is it the Title 5, right, Jack? Title 6, I'm sorry. Title 6 complaint. I'm sorry, guys, I'm tired. I just had my coffee. That's why I'm so hyperactive. So the Title 6 complaint, we're going to show everyone how to file it, how to do it. But what I need you to do is go to your library, make a paper copy of that complaint, that Title 6 complaint, send it to your elected officials as well, and your congressman, which I know in Northeast Queens and parts, it's Congresswoman AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. And by the way, I do want to give a shout out to AOC's office, because they did come to one of our Queens Bus redesign meetings. And I know the Congresswoman is very upset about the 88. She's very concerned about the lack of overnight service over there on Horace Harding. But to get back to Southeast Queens, you can send it to Gregory Meeks and the other elected so that they have a copy of that. Because when we start filing hundreds of these complaints, maybe the Federal Transit Administration will launch an investigation into the Queens bus redesign, because technically the MT bus company gets federal transit grants as well as the New York City Transit. So therefore, the Federal Transit Administration has oversight on this. And my colleague, Jack Narenberg, also attended a civil rights event.
So there was a conference that I went to last year by the Transportation Research Board, specifically on equity in transportation, how to best incorporate that into the practices of those in the transportation industry across the country. And I kept going on and on. This was actually right before the public hearing for the Queens redesign last year. And I went on and on about the issues that were going on in Queens with the bus stop eliminations, what could be done. And the last person to present suggested that I file a complaint with the federal government regarding the Civil Rights Act. So, and that was actually the beginning of my investigation with the FOIL request, was that that presentation. And I reached out to the I think it was, I forget exactly what office it was in the federal government. This was, of course, before everything changed in January. But they were incredibly helpful. They gave me some information regarding the Title VI circular, basically all of the requirements for transportation agencies to be in compliance with Title VI. So that's been the basis of a lot of the FOIL requests that I've been submitting. And there's a lot more that we're going to be doing.
We did get a comment about the city controller's report and his comments about the Queens bus redesign. Yes, the city controller did do a report. It wasn't on the Queens bus redesign, but it was on accessibility, access on buses. Yeah. Jack, do you want to touch on that?
Yeah, so the Queens bus network redesign was actually mentioned as part of the report. And in the report, it is admitted that the bus stop eliminations, the way that they're doing it, are going to disenfranchise people with disabilities and senior citizens and others with limited mobility who can't walk farther. It is admitted in the report. So at the very least, they have to take that into account.
Yeah, I did speak with Comptroller Brad Lander. Unfortunately, we didn't get a response from him. He was, I don't know if he heard me or he just walked away from me. But we are trying to get the comptroller on this. I think what's going to happen, and again, guys, you know what? And I will say this with elected officials. Elected officials tend to be reactive rather than proactive. We all know that. And I have a feeling what's going to end up happening is once the shit hits the you know what, suddenly the elected officials are all going to wake up on July 1st or July 4th and say, we got to get this cat back in the bag. And suddenly you'll see them out of the woodworks start getting things going. This is what it is. And so, it's sad. We're all fighting for crumbs when we should be fighting for, what's the terminology, Jack? What do we want? The promised land, right? We want more routes, more buses. And one thing, in fairness to the MTA, because I know the MTA has been listening to our meeting and they also had some concerns about what we've discussed. There is, and this is something that I do want to stress. I don't know, Mrs. Byers, she's still here. There is an MTA. Oh, she left?
Yeah.
Oh, she did leave. Okay. There is a bus driver shortage nationally throughout the country. That is true. There is. And I wish Mrs. Byers was still here. So the reason why there's a bus driver shortage is because MTA bus drivers are underpaid, overworked. And again, guys, I know people are like, oh, Charlton, you're sympathizing with bus operators. No, it's true. It is true. And a lot of bus drivers are sick because when you're sitting down in a seat for so many hours, it's not easy. You get blood cramps. It's technically, it's like driving from here to Philadelphia every day. That's what some bus operators are doing. Am I right, Jack? And back.
Absolutely. And the breaks that they get often don't cut it. I mean,
Right.
Of course, every bus driver has their own experience, but yeah, I also did want to mention that, yes, every transit agency has a scarcity of resources. That is true. So many other transit agencies across the country are now facing fiscal crises. Philadelphia is in one. Chicago's in another. The MTA has not been hit as hard for a number of different reasons, but that's not an excuse to all of a sudden start eliminating all these bus stops and claiming this is a victory for bus riders and using misleading information and misleading data to try to get that point across to the elected officials and the people who are actually and the people who are, of course, who don't have that understanding because they're not going to look for it. They're not going to automatically say, hey, I wonder what data the MTA used for this. It's just
so Jack, we're getting a comment. So the MTA also had asked me just now to mention a couple of things.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, I do want to mention this. The MTA did create the Q51 route, right? They did. And it is a new bus route that's going to run on Linden Boulevard in Southeast Queens. Okay, we get that. But the Q51 was originally supposed to go all the way to Brooklyn, to Gateway Center Mall. Now you have the Q8 going there, which is good. Why could the Q51 not go there as well? That has been a number one complaint. So again, I understand what the MT's position is, that they've created this new route, but at the same time, the 51 is going to Rockaway Boulevard. Okay, is that a step in the right direction? Yes. But why couldn't you also extend that to Brooklyn to connect with the 82 so you could go down Kings Highway, right? That's what people want. So I will say that. So Jack, yeah, we are getting some comments coming in. And some of the comments are, won't the 82 bus route be better for people who live in Queens Village? So no.
The answer is no, because you're eliminating direct access to the J train. And it is not running as frequently as the 110's been.
Right.
And people don't understand that. The fact that service is being cut in a transit desert, So instead of getting that direct service along Jamaica Avenue, you now have to switch buses, enter apparently a double fare zone, which I really hope is not the case, but it seems pretty clear. I really hope that the New York State Transit president was misled about that.
So we're also
yeah,
getting
so
comments. I can't even read this comment. So we're also getting a
where you looking?
comment. So we're also getting a comment coming in that says, wait a minute, what the hell is this? Hold on, give me a second. This is okay. Yeah, go ahead, Jack. Talk for a second while I try to adjust this comment. Really.
Yeah, a lot of these are from but yeah, it's a service reduction. It's discriminatory.
So why? And the comment is, why don't you give the promotional transfer a chance? And this is would be a great success. So I do want to comment on that. Remember, if this transfer was extended forever, then that would be a victory, right? It's only a promotional transfer. Let's get that clear. We shouldn't be begging for crumbs. We're not mice. We're human beings. Yeah.
They intended it for it to be temporary so that they could study the travel patterns. But again, they're studying very limited travel patterns, and they've openly excluded a pretty sizable amount of the population that's going to be affected by the changes in the redesign. So it's pretty clear. It's pretty clear what they're doing, and I have a feeling that this was intentional. I could not get an answer as to whether they were also going to be studying the Metro card, and also keep in mind that this promotional transfer only applies to Omni. It does not apply to Metro cards. And I could not get an answer as to whether they're also going to be including MetroCard users in their study as well.
Oh, yes. And so, guys, a lot of healthcare workers, sometimes they pay in coins. A lot of people pay in coins. And technically, that is a civil rights violation. People who pay in coins should be allowed the same opportunities as Omni with the transfer. I don't know why the MTA couldn't incorporate that. We also got another comment coming in.
Yeah, but they're also saying they're evaluating origin destinations of the riders, but how are they evaluating that, especially since you only tap once to get in?
Right. So, Jack, we have another comment coming in.
Are they tracking the GPS data of everyone?
Jack, we have another comment coming in.
Yeah.
So the comment that's coming in is, why is Passengers United been so negative about the Queens bus redesign? You guys don't understand that faster buses will mean better service for the entire borough.
Do you ride the buses? Have you gotten a chance to listen to people and listen to people's needs? Because if you go on the ground, you're going to hear a very different picture. And if you actually listen to people and really have an open mind about people's lived experiences, we were open. We've been open this entire time, but the MTA screwed it up and cannot justify why they screwed it up.
We also have another comment coming in from Jackson Heights. How come you guys are not talking about the Q49 bus in Jackson Heights? So I want to make something very clear. If I forgot to mention the Q49 in the beginning, I'm sorry. There's so many bus routes in Queens. But I will say this. In the very beginning, even before Jack could join Passengers United, I marched and held a press conference with Nuller and Jim Burke in Jackson Heights to save the Q49 bus. When Riders Alliance said it should be eliminated and you didn't need the Q49 bus, that was Stephanie who rode the bus from Riders Alliance, rode the bus with New York City transit officials and went against everyone. I will say Nuller, Jim Burke, Nuller, everyone worked hard to save the Q49 route in Jackson Heights. Now, are there going to be bus stop eliminations in Jackson Heights? Yes. And we will be coming out to Jackson Heights. First, we're going to be dealing with Southeast Queens because remember, the Q49 service changes do not take effect until August 29th, Sunday. And I just want to make sure, I believe I'm right on that, right?
Yeah,
I believe Q49,
I think it's August 31st.
I'm sorry, August 31st. Yeah. So trust me, Jackson Heights, we're going to be out there. We're with you. I've been in communication with people. In fact, in the very beginning of the Queens bus redesign, you can ask Mark Henry. We've been working on this for about 5-6 years. We were all in the Jackson Heights library. Many of you who are Passengers United members joined us from Jackson Heights. So don't worry, we got you on the Q49. And then the other complaint that we're getting is the airport bus, the Q. So the Q70 is still running, guys. It's the Q80. Is that the route?
The
The
Q80 is the one that they're splitting Q10, and those would both go to JFK.
No, which was, I think it was the Q90. That's the one. The
Q90
Q90.
is already out of Flushing. Yeah.
So what people were asking is, are they eligible for, if they take a subway, are they eligible for that? And again, guys, we just told you with the Omni transfer, if you start your bus according to the empty document that we read, Jack, can we go back to that for a second? Because there seems to be some confusion here, and it's not us.
Which document are you referring to?
The transfer document that was passed by the MTA board.
Yeah.
Because many people came in late to the meeting too, so we'll cover that again. How many people are on our YouTube stream right now? Because we got the comments coming in. And for all of you who are calling me, texting me on my phone, guys, I'm reading your comments. I just read some of them. Y'all didn't need to, y'all just trying to put me in the hot seat and text me, but it's okay, yeah. So this is the comment. Jack, why don't you go through it?
Yeah, are you talking about the document that they have or the document that we have?
This is the document that we have. So can we just read this again for the people to understand what we're talking about?
Yeah.
That this was approved by the MTA board.
Yeah. So they're saying that currently the MTA allows customers to make one transfer within 2 hours from the time of the initial paid fare tap at the start of the journey. Today, 22 Queens bus routes have quote-unquote special transfer privileges, allowing bus customers using these routes for an additional transfer from other transit routes. Yada, yada, yada. Therefore, the MTA is proposing this promotional free transfer policy to allow Queens bus riders tapping with Omni, not MetroCard, not coins, Omni, one additional free bus transfer within a 3-hour period from the time of the initial paid tap. The existing transfer window of 2 hours will remain, and of course, restrictions. And then they said by implementing this promotional policy, the MTA will identify permanent special transfer privilege routes for 2026. So I don't understand what they're going to be basing this off of, because it's already very limited. And they're not going to, it's very clear if they're going to be.
So I think to answer the question about the Q90, so basically you would only qualify for an additional transfer on the Q90. So let's say if you had to take two buses, let's say you live in Far Rockaway and you had to take the, what is it, the 113 or the 114 to Jamaica, and then you would transfer to the Q44 SBS. So, and then you would get the other transfer on the Q90 to the airport.
But it would only work for Queens. They're not including buses from the Bronx. They're not including buses from Brooklyn. They're only including, as far as Demetrius told me, buses in Queens, not subways, not the complete picture. And they're going to get a very distorted amount of data.
And so, also, for those of you trying to wonder who Demetrius is, Demetrius Critchlow, and guys, you know, I know I've criticized Demetrius a lot, but Demetrius was kind enough to share this information with us. So I'll give him that. I will give him that. He is the president of New York City Transit. And Mr. Chairman, I know the chairman's people and the press people from the MT are watching this. So again, if you feel that we've done anything wrong, because I know I'm going to get criticized. We always do. We'll get screamed at. We do get screamed at by the MTA guys. Yes, it does happen. It's not our fault. We're relaying the information that we were given. Am I right, Jack? Am I right, board members on this call?
Absolutely. And also, I mean, again, with any effort, no effort is perfect. Apparent. I mean, I'm again not excusing the MTA because their priorities were not in the right place, but at the very least, we're really trying to make an effort to bridge that gap in representation, bridge the gaps in access that were created by the MTA, the elected officials, the other organizations to really really go above and beyond in understanding the needs of the ridership and really advocate for everyone
Okay, we have some
again,
comments coming in.
we may not have done everything to everyone's
Jack,
liking, but we're trying to do it.
we have some comments coming in. So I am just
Hi,
afraid.
it's David Kupferberg. Sorry,
David, hold it, David, hold it. We have comments coming in. We have a comment from Alan Rosen. I am just afraid that people will not complain and just accept the changes, even if they're hurt because they feel powerless. If you pay in coins, you do not get a free transfer between bus and subway. That is true. That has always been the policy, but we're hoping the MT has a heart for our healthcare workers, and not only healthcare workers, everyone, because Queens is a borough of workers, right? We use buses. Mike Howard had a comment.
Yeah.
I usually
Also, George had his hand up for a while. I think.
Okay, hold on. Let me read the comments in the order because Mike didn't get a chance to go. I usually go to First Presbyterian Church in Jamaica, and it sucks that I have to take 2 buses on Sundays to church starting on August 31st in case the queue. Actually, no, it's not August 31st. It's actually July 29th, which is, what is it, 3 weeks away, something like that.
Yes.
George had a question. Yeah, go ahead, Mike. Take it away.
Well, you're absolutely correct. It does start. I know it starts on June 29th, which is 3 weeks away. And good thing. I mean, like I said on the comment, I really don't understand why I had to take 2 buses. Like I had to take the 114 first into Springfield Gardens. If it ends at Springfield Gardens, and then I have to transfer to the Q115 if it runs local, all the way up to Jamaica from Springfield Gardens.
Right. And so I need you to organize with us, Mike. Mike is one of our trained volunteers. Congratulations, Mike. You're a role model to all of us. And we have a video coming out about Mike very soon. There's some very interesting things you're going to learn about Mike Howard, right, Mike? And
right.
So we're going to release that soon. We also have a comment coming in. Thank you, Mike. We have a comment coming in from George. Okay. George said, how do they define Queens buses? Queens Division buses. Oh, God. George, take it away, George. I know you're young. Where's George? Oh,
yeah,
God.
so because the thing is, like, Fresh Pond is a Brooklyn Division garage, and the same thing, Grand Avenue is a Brooklyn Division. And I think the Q29 is being, there's some shuffling around. So how do they define, Queens buses? Like, does the M60 count as a Queens bus? I mean, that goes pretty far into Queens.
I don't think they're. I mean, from my conversation, Mr. Critchlow, I don't think that they're counting the M60.
All right. I mean, the B 62 is being extended as part of this redesign. I mean, that goes as a result of this redesign. It's going pretty deep into Queens, into Astoria. I mean, they got to define Queens buses. They can't just put out a term and then not define it. I mean, does it include the B62 or not? I mean, that's affected by this. That's
so
the M60
I do want to answer your question. So
right.
In the Queens bus redesign, there will be a route that's being extended. I think it's the B61 that's being extended to Astoria.
62.
Yeah, from Long
62.
Island.
Yeah, it's being extended, which is a Brooklyn bus, but it's affected by the Queens bus redesign. Yeah. We have a comment
Maybe
coming
that's
in.
what it is. But I do worry that the MTA.
But they have to define it. I mean, they have to. When they say Queens bus riders, they have to say what they mean, which routes,
And they
so
don't.
I think
and
for
I think they're very successful in deceiving the public to try to do a very shoddy job on whatever they do.
So I do want to say, for clarification, what George and Jack are talking about is this document about the Queens bus transfers. So in the document, it says Queens bus riders. So that's what they're referring to for all of you on the YouTube stream. Again, we just want to clarify that. Yep. So we are getting a comment coming in. I'm trying to go through all these comments because they're coming in all over the place. And the one comment we have that's coming in is about the What route was this? Hold on one second. I can't even read this thing. Sorry, guys. We're trying to juggle all. We're getting a lot of comments. Jack, in the meantime, check and see if we have any YouTube comments coming in.
Yeah,
I try to.
I'm not seeing. Let me look. Yeah, everything. Yeah. Frederick Wells, he said the Q90 is useless. And Frederick was also asking, what are the 22 Queens routes that currently have the special transfer privileges? So there is a document that we found. I have to look for it, but it.
I know how to find that.
It's like the tariff document. It's the one, 2783.
David, hold on. Guys, let's just give David an opportunity to talk. David, go ahead. Take it away, because David.
Yeah, I definitely know that it's transferring between the Hillside Avenue and the Merrick Boulevard corridor routes via the Q17, Q30, and Q31. That's all I had to say.
Okay, and what were you trying to say, David? I'm sorry, I didn't get that.
That you can transfer via the Q17, Q30, Q31 between the Hillside Avenue corridor routes and the Merrick Boulevard corridor routes.
So are you referring to the fare tariffs when you mentioned that comment? Is that what you were referring to? Okay,
Yes.
so we don't want to confuse people here, because we already have some comments coming in and everyone's berating us. It's guys, I know we're gonna get screamed at by the MT. And like I said, if the MT is so upset, how come the MT has never joined a meeting with us? They've only sent people to our meetings, but the MT has never had a dialogue. And we are a nonprofit. And that's another thing I want to say to all the people on here. Wait, hold up, Jack. So people are asking, how come we always keep complaining against the MT? I'm going to say this. How is it that Passengers United members, we go to all the meetings every month? We go to the committee meetings, the board meetings. We're the only nonprofit that's been really doing all the volunteer work on the Queens Bus redesign. However, when they had the press conference for the Queens Bus redesign, guess who was invited? Transportation Alternatives and Riders Alliance. Can somebody explain to me? So if the MT wants to know why we're angry with them, that's part of it, because the MT is known we've had these live meetings. Where is an MT rep tonight? Are they at this meeting? No. So, and guys, I think board members, people, you guys will back me up on this, and I'm sure the passengers will back us up on this as well. We are paying for a service, okay? We pay $2.90 for the service every day. Many of us are buying 7-day unlimiteds, which is what, $34, or we use Omni, the fare cap. We're paying $34 for this damn service every week. And the MTA doesn't even have the decency to properly communicate with us. Of course, we're going to be angry. There's a lot of resentment and built up anger, and this is built up over 5 years. So am I right?
Also, if a decision is being made that's going to affect everyday transit riders, why can't the MTA justify those decisions? Why can't the MTA acknowledge that, yes, we know what we're talking about because we're on the ground doing the work and continuing the efforts that you're putting out by doing our part in engaging the public. And when something comes out, when we ask about it, because clearly there's an issue, the only reason why we would be even bringing it up is if it creates hardship for people. That's why we're in this. We're here to bridge the gaps in representation. We're here to bridge the gaps in access. We're here to elevate voices that you wouldn't have even heard of, that you wouldn't have even heard from had we not been in the picture.
And one thing I do want to say, and I want to commend Jack Nirenberg and the entire Passengers United team, every single benefit that we've gotten so far, we've been fighting for crumbs. This is how bad the MT is. They have us begging for crumbs. So when we all started working on the transfer document, many of our members worked on that about a month and a half ago. Yeah. Finally, we had to call them out at the MT board meeting in March?
In April.
April.
I really hate doing that. I really hate having to.
Wait, hold up, Jack. I'm trying to get people to understand, the listeners. So we had to go to the MT board and committee meetings, embarrass them, and call them out in April about the lack of transfer policies in the Queens Bus redesign. Then in the May meeting, suddenly they gave us the 6-month so-called promotional transfer. That's just one of the things. And then the other things are my colleague Jack Nirenberg, he had to file a FOIL request complaining that they did not do Title 5
the proper Title 6
Title 6 analysis.
And it was after my FOIL request and my pressuring them to put the document together that they released an equity evaluation a week and a half before the MTA board voted to approve this. I'm sorry, no, this should have been done a while ago. This should have been done a long time ago, and it should have been made public a long time ago. I hate having to keep pressuring the MTA for documents and information and data and just all this procedural stuff that they should have been doing this entire time. And it really pains me that
and it gets better. And it gets
also, when we were going over when we were working on the transfer document, it only took us, 4 or 5 hours to go through the whole list.
Yeah.
And when I was speaking with one of the government relations staff at the April board meeting, I told him about this transfer document, and he seemed all impressed, like, "Oh my God, wow, how did you put this together?" I'm like, "Do I really have to explain it to you? You should know this."
And we did this on no money, guys. Think about what we've done on no money. At Riders Alliance and Transalt, Transalt, don't even get me started on that, but Riders Alliance, it would have taken them, they have so many staffs, they have millions of dollars. They have 7 or 8 staff members under Betsy, and they still couldn't figure this crap out.
Yeah.
So I'm very proud of what we've done at Passengers United. Like I said, guys, we're not controlled by special interests, lobbyists. We are everyday passengers. And I want to thank Jack Nirenberg. I really do. Because his professionalism, his insight, and also George, and just Alan, Rosen, Sandra, and I also want to really give a special thanks to Karina Nieves. Her insight on all of this, all of us working together as a team, all of us coming together, and also I do want to thank a special person, Farhan Sharif. Farhan's been a huge help to us too. I don't know if he's listening tonight, he's busy, but I just want to say I'm so proud of the team here. And we are going to be having this workshop. So again, if you're a young kid in high school or if you're in college and you're listening to this YouTube stream, I need you to go to our Passengers United website. Jack, can we show them how to volunteer at Passengers United?
Yes,
and pull that up.
And I guys, did want to mention that. Yeah, I did also want to mention that. I mean, personally speaking, I want the MTA to succeed, but I'm not gonna let them get away with misleading the public and doing a shoddy job, and then people get screwed over, but that's not reported because it's celebrated prematurely. I'm going to make sure that the work gets done properly, and it really concerns me that the MTA has not been this proactive in really adopting the proper practices. And I mean, it's something that is very clear in the conversations that I've had with the folks at the MTA, the observations that I've had regarding the documents, the policies, the programs, the public outreach. It's flawed, and when there are flaws, I'm going to make sure they're addressed so that they can be remedied, and that's what we're in this for.
Yeah, and so what we're getting some comments. So people want to know, how can they join? How can they make a difference?
Yes.
So you can go to the Passengers United website, and then you see where it says join our team. Just click on that and you can join our team. Now, we did get a comment and people were asking, how can we support you? So thank you so much. So you can just go to our support us page. You can go there and you can just click there and you can make a donation to Passengers United. And, you can make a donation. And I think it's all there. If you want to make a one-time donation, which most people do, you can. And whatever you have, you can give us. Everything is there. And we use Zephy system where we don't even charge fees. So 100% of what you give goes to us. There's no administrative fees, nothing like that. And again, all of us are volunteers. We all work our regular jobs, plus we do this because we love New York City. And, those of us who live in Queens love Queens, but we have members all over the place. And I understand we had a member here from Long Island. Is Adam still on the call with us? I wonder if he's still here.
Yes, I am here.
Oh, he's there. Hey, Adam is a nice bus territory. Adam, how do you think the Queens bus redesign? I know you work in Queens, but how is the Queens bus redesign going to affect Nice Bus? Because we know some bus stops are being eliminated as well. And I know you use Nice Bus sometimes as well.
Right.
So what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, the one thing is the two-stop, the two transfer issue. I don't know how that's going to count. I know in Nice Bus territory we have it's always two transfers. It's always two free transfers. But I know in Queens, with some exceptions, it's always been one. It doesn't really, if the transfer issue doesn't affect me too much because of where I transfer the subways and this and that, but I can definitely see that being an issue on Long Island. We don't have Omni.
Right,
So
and we have been
we
fighting
don't
for
get
Omni.
we don't get to take part in this pilot, which could skew the statistics a little bit as well.
Yeah, and remember the trial period, this promotional bus period ends in January. So Nice Bus will be coming on in April of 2026. April of 2026. Nice will be getting
For now.
Omni. Right. So I do want to clarify something. There's been conflicting reports by the MTA that Omni will be installed on Nice buses by the end of 2025. That is inaccurate because Erica Richards, who works for Nice Bus, also said that it's going to take 4 months of software upgrades for them to get Omni. So it won't be till April 2026. Just a full clarification. Even the MTA is off on that. So yeah, Adam. And Adam's been doing so much. He's been coming to our meetings. We wanted to give him a shout out. He's also a LIRR rider. And how does this affect LIRR riders as well? Long Island
Absolutely.
Railroad.
First of all, with all the issues LIRR, the bus becomes an increasing part of even the N20 to the 7, with some of the gaps in service and overcrowding is something I've used more and more just to get into Queens. And then all the issues you guys discussed once I'm there. Plus, if on the occasion I want to travel around Long Island, I mean, I keep a Metro card with a couple of fares on it in my pocket, because I know if I board a Nassau bus, that's really the only option.
Since you're mentioning MetroCard, and by the way, the MTA criticized me for still using a MetroCard. And I tried to explain to the MTA I have to use a MetroCard because my mother has to go see the doctor in Nassau County. This is what they don't understand, So for all of you at the MTA telling me, Charlton, switch to Omni, I can't because I got to take my mother to the doctor's office. And we need MetroCard. And also for our Beeline brothers and sisters in Westchester. Is there any other comments or we're good? Adam? Or nothing? Yeah, Jack,
no.
I know you.
No, I guess that's what I have to say. I mean, we're even more in the dark out here because we don't really have Omni in terms of all these changes.
Yep. And by the way, I do want to say, many of you were commenting that the LIR ticket machines no longer sell MetroCard in Queens. That's also in Nassau County. That actually was a lifesaver for people who needed MetroCards. But they never did sell the Unlimiteds. I have their 7-day Unlimited. So, and the 7-day Unlimited in Nassau County goes really far, guys. It can really save you. Because sometimes when you use paper ride MetroCards in Nassau, and you do 290 dips, sometimes you don't get the transfers, and that's a whole other issue.
And yeah, just getting the Metro card out here. We don't have the machines in the stores that you have in the city in Queens.
Yeah, and so for those listeners who use Nice Bus, if you go to Jamaica 179th Street, the check cashing place there, they sell Metro cards. Also, they have Metro cards. I believe you can buy them at the check cashing place on Parsons Boulevard, by Parsons Archer. It's closer. It's right across the street from McDonald's. They also sell Metro cards. And one thing I do want to stress, many of the check cashing places have told me that some cases, they don't have 30-day unlimiteds anymore. And I would suggest to everyone, don't buy a 30-day unlimited because your card could get damaged and then you lose the money. So just do a 7-day unlimited if you have to use nice bus. That's only if you're doing more than 12 trips, obviously. But if you're just doing paper ride, you can pay in coins if you're just using buses. But if you are using a subway, obviously you'd have to load 290 on that. So Jack is saying he has to go in 15 minutes. I agree. We've been running this meeting for like 2.5 hours now or something like that. So Adam, thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah. And again, we're so proud of our members. Adam's a volunteer and a member. So many of our members. I do want to thank Andy Pollock. Andy, did you want to jump on?
Donaldson, can I say two things very quickly? Because I don't want to, waste anybody's time here.
Go ahead.
First thing I want to mention, we're talking about Metro cards. I want to acknowledge that the PATH train, they do not accept Omni right now. So I want to acknowledge that. That's very important to bring up. So if you have Omni, be warned, you tap and go. They have their own tap and go, but like if you don't have the, if you have the physical Omni, oh boy, good luck with that.
All right, but how does this relate to the Queen's bus readers?
So anyhow, I want to talk about that. So I want to mention a couple of things regarding that. So first things first, many of you know I volunteer at Osnum Hall Nursing Home, and the main concern is obviously the Q76 bus. Right now, they still haven't updated the signs, even though they claim June 29th, it's supposed to start going on 14th
Yes.
Avenue.
You just reminded me. So for all of you listening, so Lucille told me, so the Queen's bus, they have a very limited team from DOT putting up the signs. And so even after the Queen's bus redesign, you will still, and I talked about this earlier, when I mentioned bus drivers passing up people who are waiting at bus stops, which used to be bus stops. They look like bus stops. The bus stop sign is there, but legally it's no longer a bus stop. That is what you're going to see, and it's going to cause a lot of confusion.
Just like the Bronx.
Yes.
That's
this is what I'm
realized.
trying to explain to people. And then it's going to cause friction because now people are going to be running up to the bus while the bus is waiting at a red light. And they're going to be like, yo, you didn't stop for me. I was waiting at the bus stop. And the bus driver is going to be like, that's not a bus stop anymore. You got to go there. So, it's going to create a lot of problems. But good point. That was a good point, Andy.
Oh, and I also want to mention in Fresh Meadows, one more thing before I have to let everybody go here. We are starting to notice the Q75 signs going up on Horace Horning Expressway and on 188th Street and along Union Turnpike. The brand new Q45 stops are now being added.
Good. And we'll come out there and do videos. All right, so we got to keep it moving.
All right.
Let's go to Alan Rosen. Thank you, Andy. Let's go to Alan Rosen. He said, according to Critchlow, the MT created a world-class system in Queens, and he can't wait until it takes effect so people can start enjoying the benefits. With a statement like that, how can he be respected? He will declare the huge success. So I want to point out something to you. In the beginning of the Queen's bus redesign, Critchlow was nowhere in, he had nothing to do with this. Critchlow came in towards the end of this, right? Oh, and it gets better, guys. The vice president of MT Bus Company and New York City Bus has left the MT. Jack, do we have a picture of him to show people?
Remind me.
Everybody knows he was very mean to everyone. He was nasty. He was mean to me. He gave me like the meanest look.
Oh, Mr. Anacaro.
Yeah, Frank Ara. Is it Frank? Yeah, Frank.
Yeah, Frank Anacaro.
Yeah, he's gone. That ship has sailed to sea. So he's not going to be here when the shit hits the on June 29th. Yep, don't you just love it? People come and people go. And the new guy that's there, he runs paratransit. He's the new president for New York City Bus. So, yeah, we have that. So any comments on YouTube before we close out? Because I know we have some comments.
Yeah, so we have a couple more from Frederick Wells.
Okay.
And G Money Stacks C. So this person wrote, I feel like the MTA New York City Transit doesn't care about us in Rosedale, Green Acres, Brookville Boulevard, Laurelton, and other locations. Yeah.
That's true.
Absolutely.
And you know what's sad about it? And that is really a transit desert. I know we've been getting a lot of comments about the Q585. I want to thank my colleague who's been helping us on this. He lives there in Rosedale. He's been doing so much work on this. And we really, he's given us so much of insight there. He lives on Huxley Boulevard over there. And the flood zone. And the MT even screwed that up over there by Green Acres Mall. We are going to be out there at Passengers United. And so I just want to say something to those of you in Rosedale. That is in Community Board 13. So Queens Village, Rosedale, all those communities are in Community Board 13. Community Board 13 has been a complete, absolute, utter embarrassment. In fact, they were cited by the Queens Chronicle for not having open public meetings and violating the public meetings law. And so this goes back to Natasha Williams. This goes back to all the city council reps because they appoint the community board members. And many of the community board members drive cars. They don't care about buses. But believe in me, I'm going to start a big ruckus in Queens on the 29th. Oh, yeah. And so we're going to go down in history because this is a historic civil rights violation, what's going on. And like I said, Southeast Queens, we've been through so much. And again, for those of you in Astoria, we will have another organizing meeting as soon as Southeast Queens is done with the redesign on the 29th of June. We will be coming, we'll have another emergency meeting for all of you. So don't get discouraged. We got you Astoria, Roosevelt Island, Long Island City, Maspeth, Jackson Heights, Corona. We're with you. But let's go back to Rosedale. So being that I live in Queens Village and many of our members live, and even the bus drivers that comment on our pages, they're all in Southeast Queens. Southeast Queens does not have subway access. We really don't. Once you pass Jamaica, it's so we are suffering, and predominantly there's a lot of gentrification that's moving our way. And so I think the city council members are trying to make it harder for people to use buses. And, we see these scooters popping up all over. And that's another thing people have asked me. We don't have money for the Queens bus redesign, but we have money for all these damn scooters lying on everyone's lawn. So all I will say to that, that's another mode of transportation. However, why are those scooters being dumped near bus stops? Isn't that suspicious? And many of those bus stops are being eliminated. There's some funny business going on. And again, NYC DOT has wasted so much money, but they haven't fixed the potholes. They haven't fixed that. Alan Rosen said, so the new president of transit of buses is also the head of paratransit. Yes. I forgot his name. But again, nobody's going to remember his name.
His name is Chris Pangilinan.
Yeah. And this guy, he's another one. I did see him at the board meeting. We spoke. He didn't really say much to me. He couldn't. I know he's had some frustrations in the past about Accessoride and things like that. And people were asking, how does the Queens bus redesign affect Accessoride? That's a very good question. And I will say more people are going to be using Accessoride because of the Queens bus redesign. That is my gut instinct.
Except people who don't qualify.
And that's a problem too. A lot of people do not qualify for that. And so we are going to be doing workshops about this. This whole Queens bus redesign is such a moving operation where things are changing constantly. And I suspect after the MT watches this meeting tonight, and they are watching the meeting because they watch all of our meetings, I have a feeling they're going to come out with a statement tomorrow saying that subways are included in the transfers. And that would be great.
They
that
better
would be excellent. That would be excellent.
We told them this very specifically.
And I do want to give the MT a shout out too, because they did fix the Jamaica bus terminal. I did visit the Jamaica bus terminal Sunday. I visited it. I was there. It looks really nice. It does. But you need an Omni machine there and a MetroCard machine. And you need barriers there. And so one thing with the Queens bus redesign, people will be benefited by the new bus terminal, which is way better than the old terminal. In some ways that it's lighter, there's seating, it's brighter, although you might have to walk a little further. So, the old terminal is being rebuilt for all of you. Just wanted to let you know it's going to take them 5 years to rebuild the new terminal. Right now, the MT is going through negotiations with the landlord to figure out the design specifications for the new bus terminal. That will replace the old terminal at 165th Street. So the developer is planning to build condominiums under the apartment structure is going to be the new electric bus terminal. So the bus terminal will be able to cater to electric buses. I just wanted to put that out there as a side note. Jack, I think it's time to end.
Off of your point earlier, there's these ongoing misconceptions that just because the bus stop is being eliminated or automatically means that you can transition to other modes of transportation. You can walk farther, you can use a bicycle. And I remember having an encounter with someone who suggested that people with disabilities, they can pedal bikes. They're going to take their bike for their first and last mile. Like, what world do you live in that this is happening?
But again, guys, this goes back.
Have more
but wait a minute.
That will solve the bus stop elimination problem.
All this crap goes back to community boards, because you have people on community boards in Queens that don't use the bus, they drive. But I will say one thing. There was a community board who supported what we were doing. I think it was the community board in Bayside who supported our work. And I want to say thank you to them. There's a few community boards who support the work we do, very few, if any, who have been paying attention. The rest of the community board, like community board 12, 13, which is part of the Queens Democratic machine, is an absolute joke. And like I said, guys, we will be holding everyone accountable. The fact that the MT is doing this in a mayoral election year is disgusting. That alone should, they're so bold with this plan. It's nuts. So like I said, guys, watch the news on the 29th. There's going to be mayhem and we will be protesting. And like I said, for all of you protesting, remember, if you're going to protest, coordinate with us. Let us know what you're doing so that we can come out and guide you. And I know many of the high schools have also reached out to me. Parents groups have reached out to me because they're concerned about their daughters and children. So we want the high school, the young people, coordinate with us. Let us know what you want to do and we will help you do it. One thing the NYPD had asked, just let them know that we're going to do the rallies. And again, if you're using sound, you got to get a sound permit from the NYPD. But I would encourage everyone, that's your First Amendment right. You have the right to protest, and you also have the right to go to a transportation committee meeting. So we're going to be having a special workshop, organizing workshop, just on how to organize for the Queens Bus redesign and what steps you need to take, how you can be an effective organizer, how you can go on buses. So one thing I've been doing is every bus ride that I take, I make an announcement about the Queens Bus redesign. And passengers, you can do that, just stand up and just say, good evening, everyone. I'm sorry to disturb all of you, but I just wanted to let you know the Q87, there's going to be changes, or if you take the Q101, or if you take the Q1, whatever route you take, and just tell them what's happening. And always refer everyone back to an item. Because one thing I found when you're talking to people about bus service changes, people want to know, where can I look up this information? Where can I find this information? So I would say send them to our website, passengersunited.org, because as soon as you go on our homepage, everything is right there. And actually, you know what was crazy during the Queens Bus redesign? A lot of people came to our page. They didn't go to the MTA page because our page directs people, right, Jack? Did you want to pull that up and show them?
Absolutely. I mean, as we made very clear in the beginning, we want to make it as easy as possible for people to get involved and know what's going on. So by providing a link at the top of our homepage, and then it's pretty intuitive. You just keep scrolling down and all the resources are right in front of your fingertips.
Right there. So again, guys, yeah, I think you can look it up there. In closing, because we gotta
And we are gonna
go.
get more information about our upcoming action. All this is going to be on the Queens Bus Network redesign portal. So stay
Yeah.
tuned.
And so a full disclaimer, I cannot do any events or anything. So what we are trying to do is coordinate it because many of us, as you all know, we work the elections. So we'll be doing all the events after the elections. So that's going to be the week of the election is the 24th. So I would say 25th. So like on the 26th, from the 26th, 27th, we'll be doing a lot of rallies then, And by the way, June 29th is also the Pride Parade, just to let all of you know. So that's another issue. Many people have expressed concerns about that because, that is just, some people feel it's discrimination, right, Jack? That people are going to be going to the Pride Parade, but there's no bus service for them or changes are happening. So again, make a plan.
I mean, I think it was just a sheer coincidence, but
yeah, I don't think that was done intentionally. Yeah,
be a lot. It will probably be a lot harder for them to get in, especially if they're in a double fare zone, if they're in a transit desert, if the buses that they've been relying on are no longer running, if their stop is eliminated, and it becomes much harder to get to the bus. Yeah, but I think the two are completely coincidental.
So yeah, any closing comments? Because we gotta wrap it up, guys. Anyone here with their hands up? Any comments? Anything on the YouTube stream?
Anything
comments.
On YouTube.
Okay. And again, we're so honored to have all of you tonight. We love to do these meetings. At Passengers United, our meetings always run over because we're just committed to all of you. I just want to thank the whole Passengers United team, especially Jack Nirenberg for his leadership and his encouragement. Everyone's been great on this team. Alan Rosen, what he's doing with the Brooklyn. Alan Rosen, by the way, is leading the Brooklyn bus redesign. He is like the number one leader of that. So again, guys, check out, and you can go to his petitions and everything on our website. It's all linked. You can also read articles on the Queens Bus redesign by going to our website at Passengers United. It's called Riders Review.
Yeah, Riders Review. By the way, Alan was one of the people who developed some of the existing routes that you see in Brooklyn. So keep that in mind.
Oh, yes. And Alan also did some of the routes in Queens, too. He used to, I don't know if he was still here or he left. He may have left.
No,
he's still here. Oh, he's still here. Alan, did you want to say something, or George, or?
The only thing I wanted to say is that the MTA keeps saying they don't have any money, but they could provide much better service with the existing resources if they change some of their stupid policies. Twice in the last 2 weeks, I had 16 minutes added to my trip simply because the not-in-service bus refused to stop. He was going where I was going to go, and if he would make stops, it would add about 2 minutes to his travel time, and he would have saved 5 people 15 minutes.
Wow.
So they can provide a lot better service just by changing their stupid policies.
Yeah, I agree with you. And so we are going to address that in the workshop that we're doing, how to deal with canceled runs and trips, because that's also a civil rights violation. We will discuss that. Thank you. George, did you want to say anything in closing?
No comments for now. Just
okay.
Also make sure to keep bombarding them if you have any particular routes that you want, restored.
George, did you want to comment on the Q44? Because I know we've gotten some comments already. People are asking me how come the Q44 was not extended to Fordham. This has been ongoing. George, I think you should take that.
Yeah, well, I mean, I can't really speak too much, but supposedly they claimed it was because of traffic on the Whitestone Bridge, which honestly, having taken that route, I don't think that's the choke point. It's like the Bruckner interchange. There's other choke points besides just one random, point on the route. But yeah, basically they said it was because of that. But the thing is that the St. Barnabas Hospital and everything, there was supposed to be an east-west route serving that area. in the Bronx redesign, and then all of a sudden they just, they say, okay, well, the Q44 will do it in the Queens redesign, and then they pull that out, and now that area doesn't have anything. And they claim that they'll look into it in the future, but that shouldn't have been pulled out so quickly.
Thank you, George. And we also want to have a special thank you to Yuki Endo, who's a loyal Passengers United volunteer and member, and he joined us tonight overseas from Japan. So I know Yuki was in and out. Thank you, Yuki, for joining us. So yeah, I think we're gonna wrap it up now. Thank you so much to everyone who came out tonight. Thank you so much for all of you who watched on YouTube, who shared it out on Facebook. And again, any bus operator out there who in your spare time, if you want to volunteer with us, when you're not working as a bus driver, obviously, and you have any insight, please, we would love to hear from you, and we will keep it confidential. And also we want to give a big thank you to Mrs. Evangeline Byers. She had a prior commitment, she had to go, but we just want to thank her for coming on tonight. Her insight was so inspirational, and she is going to be with us. And we also want to thank just so many other leaders. And even though we have issues with Local 100, there are many Local 100 members who do support us. Same thing with ATO. They're actually proud of the work we do, but the official union leadership has not recognized what we're doing, and that's where the issue is. So yeah, let's close it out. And a special thank you to Jack Narenberg for his technical expertise and putting the Zoom and handling all the different juggling things. It is very hard to do that, and I just want to congratulate him on graduating. And that's pretty much it. Jack, if you want to close us out, thank you.
Yes, and again, thank you all so much for joining us, and please stay tuned. There's a lot more coming, and we need you. And we need everyone to pitch in. We cannot do all this alone, so please, stay tuned. There's going to be more coming. Please get involved, because this is going to affect you. This affects everybody. And just because it doesn't happen in your backyard doesn't mean that it doesn't affect you, or that it doesn't affect someone. This is a big issue, and this is something that we're going to really need to really dive in with at full force to really get on top of. So stay tuned, and let's get ready.
Good night, everyone. Thank you for joining.
Have a great night.
Good night.